Rain down on Saturday?
Sunday.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, Lisa.
Stuff going on out there today.
Oh my gosh, traffic is, that's
School buses too.
Oh.
Everybody ready? Okay, let's start. Thank you everyone for coming this morning, Monday. Start with the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I will note all board members are in attendance here this morning. We have a busy agenda today, this morning, and with some hearings and some matters concerning the purchase of voting equipment. I am going to take the liberty of moving our first item, recommendation for new voting equipment, to later in the agenda, if there's no objection from my board members, to address other matters. Hearing none. Let's see here, there's going to be a few matters. What agenda? Let's just move to East Cleveland, since we have, I think, some people here want to address that. We can move on. What agenda item is that? That is agenda item 5. Okay. Certification of the East Cleveland mayoral recall election issue and establish said recall election to November 8th, 2022 general election. Does anybody need to address that from staff?
All I can do is just very quickly, petitions came in, we gave them back to the clerk. There were sufficient signatures to put the question before to recall the mayor of East Cleveland. And per their charter, there's 5 days for the mayor to resign. He chose not to do that. Per their charter, the election must be held between 60 and 90 days at the conclusion of that at the end of that 5 day service period. And then within that 60 to 90 days, the charter goes on to state that if a general or special election falls within that window, that's the date of the election. The November 8th general election does fall within the 60 to 90 day window. So that dictates when the election is. And the Board of Election then actually selects the date. So we are not only are there sufficient petitions to have the election, but also per their charter, we would have that election on November 8th.
Okay, thank you. And is Mayor King here? Mayor, you can be heard. I understand you would like this board to have the election on October 26th.
Yes.
And we'll hear you on that matter. Also, Ms. Blokowiak, Blihoviak, you want to be heard on this matter too? Okay. Anybody else in the audience want to be heard on this matter specifically? Okay, hearing none, why don't you come up, Mayor King, and we'll hear from you. Yes, please. And we're going to swear you in, sir, if you would, Steve.
Mr. Rick, do you solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, could you please state your name and address, sir?
Brandon L. King, 1735 Elsinore, ELSINORE, East Cleveland, Ohio, 44112.
Okay, and what would you like to tell the board, sir?
I would like to request that the board issue a special election as the charter calls for, and not lump this into a general election. If I could elaborate, I would like for the electorate to show up to choose recall or no recall, and that is the only thing on the ballot. Far too often in East Cleveland, the electorate, or just people who are registered to vote or who are signed up to vote, are duped into signing what I can only call bogus petitions. Last week we had calls every day saying that they signed something for a grocery store. They signed something for a second stimulus check, right? I would ask so that the electorate is clear on what they're coming to the polls for. that a separate special election be held. Ultimately, I would like to get to the residents so that this is not seen, is no more used as a way to seek and get power in the city of East Cleveland. This is used as a tool for that. Someone's mad with you, someone has political aspirations, and that sparks this. You may not know, but after this happened, now I want to say there's 2 or 3 other elected officials that they pulled recall petitions on, and this has to come to an end, right? So I'm asking for a special election separate from the general election so that we can address this as a city.
Thank you. Any questions for Mayor King? Ms. Blockwiak?
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Now, you were in a public comment session, Ms. Blockwiak, but I included you here now because you want to address the matter that we're discussing, correct?
Yes,
Okay, you have up to 5 minutes to be heard by the board, okay?
thank you very much. I'm here because I know that Mayor King had requested a different time, a different date for the recall election. And there are a number of reasons to oppose that. One is, as already has been stated, your policy, and I don't remember whether that was a law or just the Board of Elections policy, or even the charter. I don't think I remember that, but it says that it should be held on the date of the next election, if there's one that falls in that time. That is the way we save money, for one thing, and that makes it the best time. Another thing that makes it the best time is that we have been hearing how difficult it is for the Board of Elections to get an adequate number of employees, and getting another set of employees for an election that close to the general election would be difficult for the Board of Elections. Another issue is that it is widely felt in East Cleveland that the reason the mayor wants to have the election at a separate time is that he feels it would be easier to manipulate the results because there would be a smaller number of people voting. As you're very aware, the recent primary elections have had exceedingly low turnout. I don't have the data in my head of the last one, but the one before, we had one precinct that had 1.5% turnout, one that had 28% turnout, and the rest of them were all in the 8 to 12 range. If we had another election, there would be many fewer people voting than if we have it on a general election. And that would make it less reflective of the will of the general public in East Cleveland. So I look at item 5 and see establishing said recall election at the November 8th, 2022 general election. And I thank you for being on the agenda in the way that makes the most sense for the Board of Election and for the residents of East Cleveland. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Blockwiak. Any questions for Ms. Blockwiak? Okay, thank you. And I want to acknowledge Mayor King. I know the Law Director Hemmings has emailed us. She may be delayed because of flight, but indicated that you'd be here to speak. So we were aware of that. We have received a copy of her letter. I know our staff has also looked into it. Mr. Lawler, our manager of candidate petition services, recommended to you, Director Pilati, when that election should be held.
We did, you did, had a discussion, and I agree the charter is nothing in debate. It's pretty clear how this would be.
Okay. And Mr. Musson, have you looked at the charter too?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
And so what, I mean, could you, needless to say, I'll just read, I think, what are the relevant sections. Such election shall not be held less than 60, not more than 90 days after the expiration of the period of 5 days last mentioned, which was the 5 days which Mayor King could decide whether to resign or not. Of course, he chose not to. At the same time as any other general or special election held within such period. But if no general special election be held within such period, the election authority shall call a special election. Clearly, a general election will be held within this period, correct?
Correct.
So that's your interpretation, is that it should be held in a general election.
That is correct.
If there was no general or special election, then maybe Mayor King's request could be entertained because we'd have to set a date, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Any questions from the board members?
No.
Okay. All right. I will move to certify this East Cleveland mayoral election issue and establish a recall election on the November 8, 2022 general election ballot. There's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion passes. Thank you, Ms. King, Ms. Blackway, concerning this matter. All right, we wanted to get that done for you because we have I think, somewhat lengthy hearing here in regards to another matter as well as our voting election equipment decision. So we'll move on to the protest hearing filed by Shalira Taylor regarding Shayla Davis's petition for the House District 18. Is Ms. Taylor here? Okay, and are you being represented by anybody, Ms. Taylor?
No.
Okay, and is Ms. Davis here? Okay, are you being represented by? Okay, and that's Mr. Smith, correct? Sam Thomas, okay, thank you, Sam. All right, and I'm gonna. Okay, Mr. Lawler's here to tee this up for the board. Let me just, when he tees this up, then we're going to hear from Ms. Taylor, as she has the burden of proof here. And then there'll be an opportunity for board members to ask her questions. She can call witnesses, present evidence and documents. And of course, Ms. Davis, you'll have your opportunity to be heard too by the board represented by your attorney, okay? All right, Mr. Lawler, thank you.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. Brett Lawler, manager, Canada Judicial Services. On August the 8th, Sharita Taylor filed a protest against Sheila Davis, Ohio representative, District 18, she's an independent candidate. On August the 10th, Ms. Taylor filed an amended protest letter. July the 29th, Ms. Davis filed her petition for seeking the office of District 18 as an independent candidate. The minimum number of valid signatures was 414. She filed 726, and that resulted in 546 valid signatures, considerably more than 414 needed. She was certified to the ballot last week, the board meeting. Ms. Taylor is a qualified elector to bring the protest forward, and she is also, to note, a Republican candidate running for Ohio House District 18. The original protest filed by Ms. Taylor indicated that Ms. Davis is a current Democratic Central Committee member, winning the election on May the 3rd for Garfield High School C, and the subsequent protest letter, that claim was withdrawn because Ms. Davis did lose that election in May. So she is not a sitting district committee person. The other issue is Ms. Davis's candidacy is invalid because no person shall be a candidate for nomination or election in a party primary. That person voted as a member of a different political party. The third protest point is Ms. Davis voted as a Democrat May 3rd of 2022. He has voted as a Democrat for the last 20 years. And finally, that Ms. Davis was appointed to a vacancy in the Ohio House 11 as a Democrat in February of 2022. Registration manager Betty Edwards and myself reviewing the protests. We have some observations we'd like to share with the board. Ms. Davis has voted since 2004 as a Democrat. She did not vote in the August 2nd partisan primary. As we stated, Ms. Davis was a candidate for Garfield Heights 4C as a Democratic Central Committee member, but she did not win that election, so therefore she's not a Democratic current sitting Central Committee member. She is also not a member of the County Executive Committee member of officers as of the last notification from the Democratic Party on July the 12th. She is currently, Ms. Davis is currently a member of the Ohio House of Representatives District 11, appointed to fill the vacancy of Stephanie House in February. She is currently listed as a independent on the House member directory. And the final thing is Ms. Taylor indicated that she would like the board to review pages 3 and 4 of petitions with the signature verification, and registration manager reviewed those pages and found that there should be no changes in any of the determination ability of any of the letters.
Any questions for Mr. Lawler? Okay, thank you. I'm sure he'll be available should questions arise, Mr. Lawler. Thank you.
Right here.
All right. Ms. Taylor. Okay, please state your, well, if you can be first swear in, please, Steve.
Please do solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I did.
Thank you.
Could you please state your name and address for the record, please?
Shalera Taylor, 9618 Orleans, Cleveland, Ohio, 44105.
Okay, what would you like to share with the board?
First, I would like to share the evidence so the board can copy.
Well, I can tell you, whatever you submitted to the board, all the board members have it. Okay, so,
This is new
okay, this is,
No.
have you provided that evidence to Ms. Taylor?
to Ms.
Ms.
Davis.
Davis?
No, but I can.
Okay. You need to, okay?
Now,
Thank you.
all right.
And if you want to distribute it, Brett, you could. Okay,
Again,
sure.
how long do I have?
You will decide. There's going to be no limit, but I mean, I'm glad you brought up that point. Us board members have an opportunity to ask you questions at any point. You'll be cross-examined by Mr. Smith or Ms. Davis to some of your questions that you might be asking. You have the burden of proof by clear and convincing evidence to support your position, okay?
Yes.
And so that is how we'll start, and you may begin.
So I'm here today to contest independent candidacy for Shayla L. Davis because she's a Democrat and not an independent. A letter was received from Sam Thomas in response to my letter, in response to my protest. And it stated, please allow this letter to serve as Ms. Davis's position paper. The attorney, Thomas, goes on to say in the letter, in the present case, Ms. Davis signed her nominating petition declaring her independent candidacy on June 10th, 2022, and has acted entirely consistent with that declaration. Attorney Thomas goes on to add, when challenging is based solely on the petitioner's pre-petition condition, the evidence needs to be substantial to warrant the exclusion of an otherwise qualified candidate. And a person cannot register in the state of Ohio to be an independent. It is solely based on self-identification. And before I proceed with the evidence, I like to point out that in the Board of Elections manual, it states that an independent candidate must actually be unaffiliated from any political party, and the required claims of unaffiliation must be made in good faith for the candidate to be qualified to run as an independent candidate. Let's examine Ms. Davis's history after June 10th, 2022. And I will establish that Ms. Davis has not entirely acted consistent with the declaration of an independent candidate. In fact, has acted entirely consistent with the Democrat Party and their views, the same party she has been affiliated with for almost 20 years. And proving Ms. Davis' independent candidacy is indeed a sham, and it was not made in good faith. The first page or the third page in your evidence is a picture of Ms. Davis's membership to the Ohio House Democrat Party. As stated earlier today, she is still a member today. The next page is.
Well, excuse me, Ms. Taylor. So I mean, where did you get this document?
It's a screenshot. It's a screenshot of the Ohio, of the website of the OhioHouseDems.com.
Okay, so when was it taken?
This was taken 8/17.
Okay, on the second page in the upper left-hand corner, it says 8/17. I
Correct.
mean, we need to get a date. Obviously, if it was taken in January of 2022, it'd be a little different than.
Everything that I present will be after June 10th, 2022.
Okay, thank you.
So this page 4 was page 3 and 4 and 5 were both taken, and 6 were both taken screenshots on, they were both taken screenshots from the Ohio House Democrats.com website membership page and on 8/17/2022. The number 5 is also a catched text only image of the page on July 27th, 2022. Page 6 is a catched page of the membership directory on July 3rd, 2022. Page 7 is a photo of Ms. Davis's headshot for the Ohio Black Legislative Caucus. Page 8 is the Wikipedia page for the Ohio Black Legislative Caucus. The Ohio Black Legislative Caucus was formerly known as the Black Elected Democrats of Ohio, and they still host Democrats to this day. Page 9 is a newsletter released by Ms. Davis on June 22nd, 2022. In the lower left-hand corner, under the spotlight, legislation spotlight, it states that Ms. Davis is proud to be a part of the Democratic Caucus's plan to protect women's rights, healthcare, and support babies and families. She then goes on page 10 in her letter to state that she voted for House Bill 99, and that was after June 10th, and she voted no as a Democrat. She voted on House Bill 687. That was after June 10th. She voted yes as a Democrat. She voted on HB 377. She voted yes, and she voted as a Democrat. She also goes on below to state where Rep. Davis has been, and it's I highlighted the pro-choice Row rally. You go to page 11. There is a flyer of the Roe versus Wade rally that Ms. Davis spoke at. It was posted by the Cuyahoga County Women's Democrat Caucus. It was retweeted by the Cleveland Lanterns with the statement of pro-choice rally downtown with Democrat candidates. It goes on to list lieutenant governor, state rep, senator, and state rep candidates. On 12, it's a close-up of the same flyer that was posted by the Ohio House Democrat Party, where it states Ms. Davis as a speaker. And as you see, the date was June 25th, 2022. And at the bottom, there are 3 Democrat organizations: the Shaker Heights Democratic Club, the Cuyahoga Democratic Women's Caucus, and Mobilize to Vote. All 3 Democrat organizations. On page 13, the same day, Ms. Davis posts about abortions in the Maple Heights Democratic Club Facebook. Page 14, Ms. Davis on June 25th, 2022, she tweeted, doing the work with great colleagues in the Ohio House Dems. She added the Ohio House Dems on her Twitter page. Page 15 is an official press release on June 13th, 2022, where it states that Ms. Davis indeed was a Democrat rep for Garfield Heights, and she issued a statement on Senate Bill 215. On page 17, on June 13th, 2022, Rep. Davis tweeted at Ohio House Dems to talk about gun legislation. On page 18, on June 21st, 2022, State Rep. Davis, and which was here as a Democrat, and another Democrat, State Rep. Sweeney, announced their introduction of legislation. Next, page 20, State Rep. Davis tweets out after Morgan True, a reporter, tweeted, a bipartisan bill in the Ohio House would eliminate the sales tax for children and adult diapers. Continue. Bipartisan bill was retweeted by Ms. Davis and also added the Ohio House Democrats. Below that tweet was added by Ms. Davis, Cuyahoga County Democrats, Ms. Sweeney, and Rep. Shayla L. Davis introduced a bill to create an infant formula tax. 21, page 21. On June 21st, 2022, this is the press release released by Ms. Davis and posted on her Facebook page. Cuyahoga County Democrats, Rep. Sweeney and Rep. Shayla L. Davis introduced bill. Page 22. Shayla Davis posted on Facebook. Check out Rep. Davis interview with Channel 5, bipartisan common sense legislation. And this was posted on Facebook. Page 23. It is the News 5 interview that Ms. Davis spoke about just previously on her Facebook page. And Morgan True, the woman who tweeted the bipartisan information, started off saying on June 21, 2022, a bipartisan bill in the Ohio House would eliminate the taxes, would eliminate the sales tax for children and adult diapers. Page 25 of the same article, State Rep. Davis, a Democrat, halfway through in the middle, it says State Rep. Davis, a Democrat from Garfield Heights, agreed, corresponding House Bill 695, a bipartisan bill that would eliminate sales tax for children and adult diapers. Page 26, July 29th, State Rep Davis, Democrat of Garfield Heights, and Bill Seitz, Republican of Cincinnati, today announced an introduction of House Bill 708.
The question on this one came from her section of the Ohio House website,
Yes,
and it stated July 29th.
yes.
Okay, thank you.
Page 28. This picture, 29, 28, 29, and 30 were all screenshots of the NBC4 News website of the article and appearance of Ms. Davis on 8/17. So a week, this was released a week before 8/17. As you can see on the first picture on 28, she appeared on television as Shayla Davis, Rep. Davis, Democrat for Garfield Heights. 29. It says, introduced to the State House in late July, the bipartisan backed House Bill 708. Continue. Page 30. In the middle, it says, sponsor Rep. Davis, Shayla, sponsor Shayla Davis, Democrat, Garfield Heights. Page 31. This was a story written on August 1st, 2022 by J.D. Davidson. It goes on to say, Rep. Davis, Democrat for Garfield Heights, and Bill Seitz introduced bipartisan bill, House Bill 708. Page 33. On August 6th, 2022, there was an article written by the Center News. And it states bipartisan bill looks to help nonviolent offenders to sentence reductions. Page 34. It goes on to talk about the Sentencing Fairness and Justice Act, or House Bill 708, is a bipartisan bill sponsored by Shayla Davis, D. Ohio, which stands for Democrat, and Bill Seitz, R. Republican, for Ohio.
Where does this come from? I'm sorry.
This is the article
It's a
with,
media article or?
yes, it's a media article with Spectrum News 1.
Continue.
Page 35 is the front of Spectrum News 1. Bipartisan bill. Sorry, that's in there twice, but that's Spectrum News 1. Page 37, I reached out to J.D. Davis, the journalist for the Center Square, and asked him, where did he get the information from? And could he share the correspondence from Ms. Davis on how if she was stated herself as a Democrat or an independent rep when doing the interview? He replied that the information came from the press release. Page 38 is the press release of Ms. Davis on June 29th, 2022, where it states that Ms. Davis, Democrat of Garfield Heights, and Bill Sites, Republican of Cincinnati, today announced the introduction of House Bill 708, the Sentencing and Fairness Justice Act.
I'm sorry, what's the date on this press release? I don't see it on.
It's at the top, July 29th, 2022.
Oh, I see, thank you.
Continue.
Page 39. There is a tweet of the same press release by Ms. Davis introducing new legislation with tweet introduction of new legislation. Next, July 29th, 2022. Page 40 is a retweet, I'm sorry, going back in June 21, 2022. She also tweeted the Cuyahoga County Democrats, Sweeney and Davis, Shayla Davis, introduced a bill to create infant formula tax credit. So it was another tweet. Page 41. This is the Instagram of Shayla Davis, Rep. Shayla Davis, who released the press release on June 21st, 2022. Again, stating that Rep. Sweeney, Democrat, and Rep. Davis, Democrat, announced the introduction of the infant formula tax. If you look below, the statement says again, Rep. Shayla Davis, Cuyahoga County Democrats, Rep. Sweeney and Rep. Shayla Davis introduced a bill to create infant formula tax. Page 42, if you have smartphones, you can view the 3 news articles. They have videos to them as well, where she appears with the D next to her name as state representative of Ohio. And she also talks about bipartisan bill
Do you have the dates for those without us pulling out our phones? Do you have the dates for those?
Yes, they're on the articles too. Yes, so
These are the, okay.
these are the articles that I spoke about
Okay.
previously.
This is nothing new.
No,
Oh,
no, they're just the videos to the articles
Got it.
that I spoke about.
Thank you.
Page 47, and I don't think they're marked, but page 47, I reached out to Bill Representative William Sites, and asked him if he was under the impression he was working with an independent state representative on House Bill 708, or if he was working with a Democrat on House Bill 708. And Rep. William Sites replied in his email. He said, "I am the Ohio Majority Leader and proudly support House Bill 708, which I have recently introduced with my colleague, Rep. Shayla Davis. I am glad you support this bill," which I did. Rep. Davis was seated a few months back as a Democrat member of the House. And he goes on to explain that she told him she wasn't going to run, and she was too late to file as a Democrat, so she would run as an independent. However, she indicated that she would help me get Democrat support in our bill if I would do the same with my Republican colleagues. He goes on to state whether it is legal for a Democrat member of the House to run in November as an independent is a legal conclusion on which I have no opinion. He goes on to say, I have no reason, however, to believe she would or has walked away from the Democratic Party. This was sent August 21, 2022. Page 43 and 44 are screenshots of Ms. Davis's Twitter and Instagram page, where she states that Ms. Evans, a 75-year-old woman who was upset about the reversal of Roe versus Wade, called her to register her to vote. And she goes on to at the Ohio House Dems, the Ohio House, she adds the Ohio House Black Caucus as well too. And if you would go a little deeper into this statement, you will see that Ms. Evans indeed did not fill out a voter registration. She signed Ms. Davis's petition on 6/28/2022. I pulled on page 46, I pulled Ms. Davis's history on 46, and the last page would be 47, you probably know, or 49, because we have 47. But the last page is Ms. Evans' voter registration, which dates back to 2013. Indeed, she is a Democrat signing an independent, which is not illegal for her to sign an independent petition. But Ms. Davis added the Ohio House Dems and is posing with a Democrat. And I have also several other Democrats that signed Ms. Davis's petition. Let's see.
Anything else, Ms. Taylor?
Do I get my closing now?
No, you get an opportunity. What will happen is we'll have Mr. Smith, who is representing Ms. Davis. He can speak,
Okay.
and then we'll have closings from both parties, unless there are any questions my members have of Ms.
I
Taylor.
just have a comment. So the Ohio House Dems website, since it was a screenshot, if you do go to that website, Ms. Davis is listed there
Today.
as a member of the caucus. So just to make sure it's current.
Any other questions for Ms. Taylor?
Yeah, I do. So, just to clarify, so the July 29, 22nd press release, which I think you said is not, which is on page 48, is that the only, document that you have that has Ms. Davis self-identifying perhaps as a Democrat? Because the other other documents appear to be media articles that predate July 29th. Everything seems to be in June. Is there anything else?
So
that you
there are Facebook and Instagram posts on page 40. There is a,
Hold on, let me just go there. That's dated June 21st on page 40. I'm asking if you have anything other than in the June timeframe.
no, nothing after July.
29th is the one press release, perhaps?
Well, we have 2 news articles after the 29th.
But I'm asking
Before
about,
that.
I'm asking about where she would have self-identified in some way as opposed to having a media outlet summarize or categorize her party affiliation.
Not that I can see.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Smith, any other questions for Ms. Taylor from the board? Okay.
This may not be Ms. Taylor, but does anybody, I guess, there were a couple places that stated that she voted as a Democrat, bills. I don't really understand the procedure, of what goes on when they're voting. I mean, the proof that you see where I'm going with that? I mean, it says she voted as a Democrat. Do they announce? How do
They
they?
put a D, they do have a list, like they have a board. But I don't know, they were not in session. I mean, that's a little bit, we have to develop a record on that, 'cause I don't know the exact date they
Well,
were in
let's-
session.
let-
Well,
let's move on.
maybe that they'll be able to answer that. I guess the
Yeah.
question I would have along those lines is, you know, it's not your position, I assume, that an independent candidate can't appear in pictures with a Democrat or a Republican, or sign a Democrat or a Republican's petition, or otherwise interact with members of the Democratic or Republican Party. I'm assuming that's a fair statement. Would you?
I'm not saying an independent cannot work with the other parties. What I'm saying is that there's no proof that Ms. Davis has worked with anything other than the Democratic Party. All of
Well,
her,
did she, is Bill Cites, is the legislation from Bill Cites?
Right,
yes, but that's a bipartisan bill with a Democrat and a Republican.
it's bipartisan because she's the Democrat sponsor.
Yes, I understand that, but would she have worked with a Republican to sponsor the bipartisan bill? I'm just trying to understand whether your position is, you know, the evidence showing that she, if as an independent, could not work with a Democrat or Republican on legislation, or appear at events, or take position on a particular issue, simply because a preponderance of Democrats support that position. I just want to make sure.
No,
Kind of,
that's not
okay,
correct. No.
okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Ms. Taylor? Okay, you can have a seat, Ms. Taylor. We'll call you back up and you can be here to close. Mr. Smith, if you'd come up here, sir. Mr. Smith, why don't you introduce yourself and your address? So we're not going to swear you in because you're an attorney, but if you call any witnesses, we'll swear that in, okay?
My name is Sam Thomas.
Tom Thomas, I'm sorry.
That's okay. And I represent Ms. Davis and her candidacy as an independent. And I must add that, running as an independent, you're not labeled necessarily to the extent of good or bad as being a Democrat or a Republican. We have freedom of movement. You can work with anyone that you want to work with. And Ms. Davis has indeed announced her candidacy as an independent to run for the state representative position in District 18 in the November 2022 election. And as I was listening to Ms. Taylor's presentation, particularly, it's interesting that she focused most of her attention on this article, this group of articles. I've never seen this before, and I don't think my client has seen it. Ms. Davis has seen it.
Excuse me, Mr. Thomas, you've been given a copy, correct?
Yes.
Do you need more time to review it then? Because we can hold the hearing in advance and you guys can go over those documents and address it at a later point in this meeting, if that's necessary.
Well, let me continue at this point and just say that as she was going through and identifying the different articles, if you notice, like on page 14, for example, she identifies herself as Republican Representative Sheila Davis, and nowhere does she say that she is a Democrat. Some of the other writings that have been done by the media or others have identified her as a Democrat. She has not identified this.
Well, the one you're referring to on page 14, I thought the point of the exhibit was because she was, this is her account, a copy of her account, And if you look at the groups and message that she herself, I guess, cited to or tagged Ohio House Dems. That's what I took those exhibits to be. And also, some of these exhibits are your client's own social media account. So I would assume she would know what she posted and interviews she gave, as I can see video and quotes from her. So I'd assume she knew those interviews were given.
Well, some of the things, that is correct.
Okay.
But if you notice on standard page 14, she does not identify herself as a Democrat. And she can further explain and respond to these matters.
But you would agree, though, that she did tag the Ohio House Dems in this post?
Yes. And,
Okay.
like I said earlier, I don't see a problem with her identifying, with other parties. As the board knows, the burden of proof is clear and convincing, as established by the Ohio Supreme Court to be shouldered by Ms. Taylor to prove her claims beyond a clear and convincing standard. The protest hearing is confined to the claims that were made in her letter. I think that some of the things that have come up today have been beyond the four corners of her protest letter.
Which items would you believe are beyond the scope of the identified issues?
Mainly, I say that mainly because I have not seen this before, and we have not had an opportunity to respond to it. And perhaps, Chairman does make a good point that maybe we should recess in order to, go through this so that, we can have an adequate response and due process.
We've got plenty of them meeting items to go through, and it'll give you plenty of time to do that. That's what you want to do, Mr. Thomas.
My candidate says no, she does not.
Okay, that's fine. I just want to give you that opportunity.
I would only just say that to the extent that, you're making the claim that this material goes beyond the scope of the protest, it would be difficult for me to have that argument be supported without additional information from you all. Okay.
And I say that as a matter of speculation too, because I haven't seen it all. Why wasn't it presented before? She has, Ms. Taylor has, amended her protest a couple of times. And this seems to me as another attempt to amend it again, perhaps. Again, just in conclusion of what I have to say, what has come up today is that Ms. Davis did not write these articles. She did not approve them, and she did them talking about the press releases.
Question. Did she, when these articles came out, ever send correspondence to any of these media outlets to not identify her as such?
Okay, you can ask her.
Okay.
So with that said, Ms. Davis, I'm here to answer your questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. If you'd be sworn in, please, Steve.
Raise your hand, please. You solemnly swear that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Yes. Thank you.
If you could please, you state your name and address, Ms. Davis.
My name is Shayla L. Davis, Shayla, middle initial L, last name Davis, 10813 Penfield Avenue, Garfield Heights, Ohio, 44125.
Okay, and what would you like to say? Are you going to ask her questions, Mr. Thomas? How do you want to proceed?
I think she would feel comfortable just responding.
To our question.
Okay, are there any questions for Ms. Davis, or was there a statement you want to make, Ms. Davis?
I wanted to make a statement and ask a question. As this protest was filed against me on August the 10th, as Mr. Thomas mentioned, it was also amended on August the 11th. And now today, the day of the hearing, we get an entire packet of information, which to me is an add-on, which then states it's an additional amendment. So now we're at our second time with additional amendments being added to this protest. So I just question, the validity of that, because we had a deadline that we had to respond by. That deadline was August the 17th, I think by 4 p.m.
And we were not allowed to submit or add anything additional, and I just don't think it's appropriate or fair at this time either.
So thank you for the comment, and I'll hear from Ms. Sticken. Did you have a question or a comment?
Right, I thought the technical protest deadline was August 26th.
28th is the
28th,
protest
okay, I
deadline
mean-
to be heard.
Right,
And
so we're still in the window, and this isn't uncommon for us to get information at hearings. I mean,
Is that a question or a statement?
I guess I'm just making a statement,
Okay.
so.
So Ms. Davis, you are entitled, as Mr. Thomas would know, to due process, which means an opportunity to be put on notice and to be heard, okay? And you've been put on notice when Ms. Taylor filed and did amend it, so you knew what she was alleging, and you have an opportunity to be heard, which is today, and through Mr. Thomas. I want to make sure you've been given that opportunity. So on at least 2 occasions, I've asked Mr. Thomas if you want to take some time to review these documents so you can better prepare responses to it. The last time I asked him, he looked at you and you nodded negatively, you don't need the time. So I'm a little confused now why you're saying you don't think you have enough time or no.
No, I'm
notice.
sorry. I didn't state that I didn't have enough time. I felt that it was appropriate for it to be added because what we received in correspondence was that our deadline to submit anything
Right.
was July the 17th.
Right.
That was the statement.
And I sent out a memo that does give the chair and the board some flexibility on the introduction of other documents, okay? That's why it's important that you were given a copy, although albeit you didn't have a lot of time to review it, but Ms. Taylor went through it. And I want to make it clear, though, if you want more time, I will ask my board members to give you more time today to look at these documents if you choose to. If you choose not to, then let's talk about other things
Okay.
concerning your case or whatever you want to discuss, okay?
Yes, I'm fine with
Okay, are you fine with moving on?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I just to add to that, I understand that the protester has the burden of proof. But in order for you to rebut the evidence that's been presented today, you need to put on some sort of case. And I don't feel comfortable or not. I mean, you don't have to. But I mean, I think to say you weren't ready to take questions, I just find it's just uncomfortable for me for you to essentially, it seems like, shift the burden to us to ask you the questions. I think you should put on some sort of case if you want to or not, but recognize, it's going to be difficult for us to respond or for you perhaps to later claim, depending on the ruling, that you didn't have sufficient time to go over the evidence that was presented to make a compelling case to us to rebut the evidence of the protester. I understand who has the burden of proof, but you can proceed however you like. I'm just saying it will be difficult for me.
Do you want a moment to discuss this, Mr. Thomas, with Ms. Davis in private? You want-
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do that.
Why don't you, Mary, if you could give them an office, maybe or an area just to discuss that, okay? And while you're doing that, take your time. We're going to go on to some other business, okay?
Okay.
And when you're ready to come back, let us know, all right? Is my colleagues okay?
Yeah,
with
I
that?
think
good
that
with
makes, yes, yeah, that was my
Yeah.
point earlier. Yeah,
All
good,
right,
thank
great.
you.
Let's move on to what we can move on to. It doesn't involve certification because we can't certify until we hear this matter with Ms. Taylor and Ms. Davis, correct? Right. How about on item 10, acknowledgement of the ballot proofs for September 13th? We can do that.
And Chairman, if you wanted to, we can act on 8 if you wanted to. Certification of the Augustine election.
Oh, okay. Why don't we do that then? Mr. Cleary is here and we'll start with really the meat of the meeting too, was the certification. Get that.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Cleary.
Brian Clary, Manager, Ballot Department. Before you should have a copy of the official summary report and certification report for the August 2nd, 2022 primary election.
Number 8.
Okay.
There were a total of 92,042 ballots tabulated in this election, and they break down as follows. We had 52,090 ballots cast on election day. 35,350 were cast vote by mail. 3,094 were cast early in person. 590 ballots were cast provisionally. We had 145 ballots cast post-election day. And then we had 773 ballots cast post-vote by mail. And below that, we have a chart. Moving on to the vote by mail early in person summary. There were a total of 48,998 ballots issued during the vote by mail and early in person voting. Of those ballots, 39,216 or 80.04% were returned and counted by the ballot department. There were a total of 719 challenge or late vote by mail or early in-person ballots. That results in a 1.80% challenge rate for the election. That challenge rate drops to 0.18% when you exclude voters who return their ballots late. Below that, you have a chart that breaks down return challenges, then the individual categories in which we challenge the vote by mail ballots. And I'll take any questions you might have at the vote by mail or in-person summary this time.
Any questions for Mr. Cleary? Okay, continue on.
Move on to the provisional voting summary. There were a total of 646 provisional ballots cast during this election. Of those ballots, 590 or 91.33% were valid and tabulated by the ballot department. There were a total of 56 invalid provisional ballots, resulting in an 8.67% rejection rate for the election. That rejection rate drops to 2.94% when you exclude voters that already cast a vote by mail ballot or requested a vote by mail ballot and who are not registered for the election. Below that, you have a chart that breaks it down, the individuals for the 56 that were invalid and the reasons that they were invalid. Any questions on the provisional summary? Hearing none, move on to the ballot remake summary. During this election, there were 260 ballot sheets processed in accordance with the board approved ballot remake policy. The overall remake rate for this election was 0.409%. If you exclude UOCAVAs and voters who voted for an eligible contest, that remake rate drops to 0.285%. Below that, you have a breakdown of the 11 categories which are approved in our board remake policy and the 260 ballots that fit with it. Any questions on the remake policy? Hearing none.
Excuse me, do all the UOCAVA ballots have to be remade?
Yes, well, I should say most of them do, because most of them we send electronically, so they're returned to us, just print out a normal paper, and we make them on their normal ballots.
Because I meant to point this out, I don't want to let you catch it. So on page 4 or 5, it says 79 UOCAVAs were remade.
That's right.
Right. If there was another portion, it said something about 77 UOCAVAs. Okay, I'm looking at page 2 of 5. Returned and counted. You see military and overseas?
I do see that.
Is that something?
I will look into that. I don't have that right now, but I will look into that, get back.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Moving on to the overvote summary, there were a total of 109 overvotes recorded, resulting in a 0.118% overvote rate for the election. There were 975 precincts following the election. Voter history is complete as of ballot reconciliation. There is one automatic recount. That recount is for member of State Central Committee, Mann, in the 24th district for the Democrats. That recount is currently scheduled for Tuesday, August 30th at 9:30 a.m. The requested recount deadline is Monday, August 29th at 4 p.m. Currently, if there are no requested recounts, the post-election audit is currently scheduled for Tuesday, September 6th at 9 a.m.
Is the recount 4 p.m. or 9:30 a.m.? Did they get that wrong?
The recount is, the automatic recount is scheduled for 9:30 a.m. on Tuesday, August 30th, but the request recount is the day before. There's a request recount day.
Got it by 4. Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. Cleary? That completes your report, Mr.
That
Cleary?
completes the report. There is no circle date, as it was just been a repeat of May.
All right. Well, I will move to authorize, we're going to take this one item at a time, to approve the remake of the optical scan ballots from the August 2nd, 2022 primary election. If there's a second.
Second.
Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Authorization, I will move to authorize to approve the absentee ballots from the August 2nd, 2022 primary election. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any other question or comment? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. And I will move to authorize to approve the provisional ballots from the August 2nd, 2022 primary election. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. And I will move to acknowledge the pre and post test results. I think that has been circulated here amongst the board members for the vote tabulation system from the August 2nd, 2022 primary election. If there's a second.
Second.
Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. And finally, I will move to certify the official results for the August 2nd, 2022 primary election. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
And on to the post-election audit. We have to make a pick, don't we?
You have to do randomly pick. There's 18 choices, and there's, if you select 2 of them.
We're right in here?
Yep.
Well, Mr. McCafferty, welcome to the board.
What do I do?
Pick one of those out there, okay? This one. You know what, let's stick in our bipartisan effort here, and she'll pick out one too. Okay, why don't you read on the record what you picked, and that's
Okay.
what my audit will be.
I'll go first. Democrat State Central Committee, District 23, woman.
I have Republican State Central Committee, District 24, man.
Okay, and save those and give them to Mr. Cleary then.
Okay,
Part of the
great.
record. Thank you. Did you get that, Mr. Cleary?
Thank you, I did.
Just a random, I get what we're doing.
So I will move to acknowledge the date and time and place of the post-election audit for the August 2nd, 2022 primary election as read into the record by board members McCafferty and Sticken. If there's a second,
Second.
any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Just regarding, so we'd like to do that on Tuesday, September 6th at 9. However, we do need to certify the recount results before we're able to begin this audit. And so depending on when that meeting would happen, if we do the audit on September 6th, and this meeting has to be prior to that, we are able to have a meeting we could have a meeting on September 6th and have the audit begin on the 7th. So just as far as setting the date, we kind of need to know when we're going to have a meeting to certify the
Okay, well, we can discuss that now. I know that you sent an email out. I know Ms. Chappelle cannot make September 1st. Though the others can't. Can we all make September 1st?
I can make September 1st, but back to certification. Would it be okay, because I know you did it as a group, if I reflected that I abstained from the certification, because I have a relative who was on there, my mother, and I don't know if that's appropriate or not. I just want to make
I
sure
don't
it's
think
clear.
there's a conflict with
Is
that.
that I just want to make sure. It's my
Just
first.
just abstain from that one race if you want, and you don't have to abstain from the whole
That's right.
That's
certification.
what I would.
Oh, is
just
that
to-
what you're saying?
Can I make that clarification?
Okay, so why don't you make that on the
Okay.
record, Ms. Sticken? that
I mean,
you-
I'm sorry, I should probably write up a little bit quick on that, so, if I could just,
Please.
yes, I voted in support for certification for all races, except for, Republican Central Committee woman, the race, District 18. I would abstain from that.
Okay, is that sufficient?
Yes, I
Mr.
think so.
Musso?
Yes.
Okay, I'm
I
fine with
appreciate that,
Thank you.
colleagues, thank you.
No, thank you. All right, so September 1st, the purpose of that meeting would be merely to certify the recount.
correct.
That would, in any other business you might.
Anything else that would come up, but at this point in time, that would be the only thing that
I
we
mean,
need to know.
if that's all we did, I don't want to cut Ms. Chappelle out of the meeting, it might be with other matters.
Yeah, no,
considered.
I appreciate that. I would want to be present, but again, I'm out of town, so there's no way I can, that whole week, so it won't be.
Well, what other the dates could we meet then? I mean,
Doesn't work for her.
knowing how the board works, it's going to be other items I had to check.
Right, as of now, we don't know, but there could be, right? So we could do it Thursday, September 1st, Friday, September 2nd, Tuesday, September 6th.
Where are you back in town?
11,
Okay, so she's not back till the 11th.
That,
right before our meeting on the 12th.
You don't have to put this on.
So we do need to, because what we would do at the September 12th meeting is we would certify the audit results. So we do need to conduct the audit
Okay, so
and enable to do that.
We have to do the recount. And we have to certify the recount.
Right, we have to do the recount, we have to certify it, and then once we do that, Brian would conduct the audit next week, and then at the September 12th meeting, he would then present certifying the results of the audit. at that
When
meeting.
do you leave?
I'm leaving before hold on, let's see. I leave this week, I leave
This week.
yeah.
So let's just.
Yeah, you guys, I appreciate your consideration and trying to accommodate.
If
me.
there's something meaty on the 1st, we'll deal with that. I mean, if we think you need to be there for that purpose. So let's keep it on the 1st.
September 1st.
First, 9:30 a.m.
9:30.
in Cleary. Lisa, that work for you?
Oh,
Okay,
yes.
we'll have 3 of us, and of course, excuse me. All right, we've got that date. So I move to acknowledge the date, time, and place of the post-election audit. What will be that date, time, and place, Mr. Cleary?
That will be, currently, if there's no request to reconcile, it'll be Tuesday, September 6th at 9 a.m.
Okay, I will move to acknowledge the date of the post-election audit for September 6th, 2022 at 9 a.m. For the August 2nd certification. Post-election audit for the August 2nd primary election. If there's a second,
Second.
thank you. Any
What
questions?
was the date again? I'm sorry.
September 6th.
Tuesday, September 6th.
That's going to be the post-election audit.
That's gonna be the actual audit.
We don't need to be here for that.
Okay.
That's all I need to know.
No, that's them.
Okay, it's just a notice to the public that there'll be an
That's
audit.
what we were posting on the website. as long as-
I know.
So I'm acknowledging the date of September 6th, 2022 at 9 AM for the post-election audit for the August 2nd, 2022 primary election. If there's a second, thank you. Any other question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
How about now move to acknowledge the ballot proofs for the September 13th Berea Ward 1 recall election?
So let's jump up to 4,
Okay.
certify, and then we can do, after 4, we can do 10 through 13.
Oh, okay.
So is there anybody to be heard here on the certification of the Berea Ward 1 recall election? Okay, seeing no one, then I will move to certify the September 13th, 2022 Berea Ward 1 recall election issue. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, let's move on to item 6 then. I will move to acknowledge the unfortunate passing of Stefana Childs Cavanis from Euclid City Council, as well as the appointment to that position from Mr. Wallace Tanner. There's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I will move to acknowledge the candidate withdrawal of South Euclid Municipal Court Judge Thaisa Howard. If there's a second.
Second.
Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And we're on to now, I will move to acknowledge the ballot proofs for the September 13th, 2022 Berea Ward 1 election in accordance with the ballot proofing policy approved by the board at the March 12th, 2021 board meeting. If there's a second.
Second.
Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I will move to approve the final approval of the ballot order for the September 13th, 2022 Ward 1 recall election. If there's a second.
Second.
Okay, hearing, any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 I will move to authorize to pay the voting location managers of $275 each. One voting location manager, one voting location deputy at $275, 6 precinct election officials at $250, $1,500 for the September 13th, 2022 Berea Ward 1 recall election. If there's a second.
Second.
Second, any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'll move to approve the final authorization for the allocation of voting booths for the September 13th, 2022 Berea election in Ward 1 recall election. Allocation quantities are based on social distancing and room size per polling location. A total of 11 voting booths will be allocated, plus 2 DS200 precinct scanners and 1 ADA automark voting unit and 2 electronic poll books. If there's a second.
Second.
Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those favors signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I'll move. Okay, you want us to hold on?
Yeah.
Okay, yes, all right, sure. We're going to take a short break here. If we can, I mean, depending on when Mr. Thomas and Ms. Davis come up, we don't run out of record. We can go through these items.
Yeah,
Right, and then all we'll have left is the voting equipment and the protest. Sure, you know what, we'll take a break till 10:20. We'll make it 4 minutes, 4.5 minutes. Ms. Davis, do you want to come back up here? Mr. Thomas?
Mary, read it? Or do you don't need to sign it, right? Okay. We'll go back to that.
Oh. Okay, Mr. Thomas, we're going to commence the hearing again. Do you have an opportunity to speak with your client, Ms. Davis?
Yes, you did speak.
And how would you like to proceed, sir?
You'd like to proceed, you'd like to present our case now.
Okay, terrific. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you.
And let me just, Ms. Davis, you are sworn in previously, and I know you wanted, now that we got kind of through the procedural aspects of this and the exhibits, did you want to make a statement to the board, or how did you want to proceed, Mr. Thomas?
I'll ask her some questions and she'll respond either directly to that and elaborate further.
Okay, thank you. Then we'll proceed that way.
Thank you. Would you state for the record Remake address?
Shayla L. Davis, 10813 Penfield Avenue, Garfield Heights, Ohio, 44125.
And what is your political affiliation at this time, Ms. Davis?
Independent.
Independent. When was that declared?
I pulled the petitions on July the 10th and filed the petitions on, I'm sorry, June the 10th, and filed the petitions on July 29th.
I'm sorry to hear that. Filed when?
July 29th,
Oh.
2022.
You know, and at this time, Mr. Thomas, as you would expect, you're going to get a lively panel of this board asking you questions. And I don't know if, now that with the documents, I'm going to present you with other documents. Mr. Gallagher, do you have the petitions and the?
They were actually provided that previous.
Okay, you have
From the
it.
beginning.
So would you, my question for you, Ms. Davis, you pulled those petitions, and I believe I've seen a copy, and I know the board members have, they were signed by you on June 10th, is that correct?
That's the first day of circulation, June 10th.
Okay, let's take a look at this, just so we're not, do you have those petitions in front of you?
Yes.
Mr. Gallagher, could I have a copy? I gave you mine. Do you have them in front of you? I just want to, so I'm looking at just the first page. It said dated 10th June 2022,
Yes,
and your signature is below that, correct?
yes,
Okay, and that's the case with all the petitions,
Yes.
correct? So you'd agree with me that that's the day you decided to become an independent, correct?
correct.
Okay, go ahead. Thank you.
Were there any actions that you took after June 10th that would bring forth your being an independent? Did you take any actions to declare that?
Yes, I actually came down to the Board of Elections to find out what procedurally I needed to do to become an independent, and was informed that, Ohio is not a three-party state, it's a two-party state, and the declaration of candidacy is the step to declaring yourself an independent. And so I pulled the petitions and then started to circulate and get petitions. And as I talked to voters throughout the district of House District 18, I explained to them that I had withdrawn from the Democratic Caucus and would be running as independent, and what my reason for running as an independent was. And that reason is simply because, as Ms. Taylor has suggested numerous times, that a lot of the work that we do at the State House is very party specific. It's very divisive at the party line. And on January the 1st, when we ended our last session, I was very troubled by the multitude of extreme bills that were coming out of the House by way of the both individual parties. And I want to really represent the people. And as a woman, I think it is imperative that I have a right to stand up for the things that I believe in and fight for women at the state.
After the June 10th declaration, did you do anything to declare that with the caucus, Democratic Caucus?
I withdrew from the Democratic Caucus once I filed the petition
Okay, and how did you do that?
in writing.
You did it in writing.
Yes,
So you withdrew from the caucus after you filed the petitions,
yes,
not while they were circulated?
no.
Okay.
Because when I came to the Board of Elections, it was explained to me that that was the procedure and step that I needed to take. And when I was going to file them, once I got enough signatures, I then formally withdrew from the caucus. However, we had not been in session since June 1st, so there were no caucus meetings or any interaction because I'm back home in the district.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. You made a statement, and I don't know that I heard it correctly. You said when the session ended in January 1st?
I'm sorry, June 1st.
June
1st
1st.
of 2022
I see.
is because I made that point because Ms. Taylor mentioned that I had voted on bills and she gave later dates in June. Those dates are inaccurate because we were no longer voting and in session after June 1st. We've been
And
on recess since that day.
you were appointed by the Democratic Caucus of the State House, is that correct?
Correct.
And you, I think there are some things that aren't in dispute. Mr. Thomas pointed out, you've been a registered Democrat since 2004 and
Correct.
regularly voted as a Democrat.
Correct.
And you attended the Democratic Caucus meetings while you were sitting in the House?
Correct.
And you formally withdrew, you said then sometime after July 29th?
So I formally withdrew when I pulled the petitions July 10th, according to the Board of Elections regulations of how you do that. Because I called around to the Secretary of State to see what was required in order for me to, what I thought was switching my party. But then I was informed that there is no actual independent party in the state of Ohio, and this is what was needed. Once I got my petition signed is when I withdrew in writing, submitted the documentation to withdraw from the party.
I'm sorry, in when, about when?
July,
In July?
yes.
You have a copy of that letter?
No, I have the email.
Okay,
I have a copy of the email that I can forward to the.
sure. And we can get those. So just a couple other things. You appeared in front of this board sometime in February this year, that's correct? That's as a result of you had filed to run as a precinct committee person in Garfield Heights
Correct,
as a Democrat.
correct.
And our staff had decided you didn't have sufficient signatures,
Yes.
correct? And then you came in and presented evidence to support that you felt you did. And in fact, this board unanimously agreed to put you on the ballot, correct?
Correct,
So you ran as a Democrat in February, or you filed for as a Democrat. You ran in May, you voted in May as a Democrat,
correct,
presumably for your own position, correct?
correct,
Right. And, but unfortunately came up short, correct?
correct.
Right. Okay. I know those minutes were part of those minutes were part of Miss Taylor's protests. I think she included them in both, correct? You saw that?
Originally, and then she amended it and removed that information because she stated that I was an actual central committee member.
Right, and, okay, thank you. And you're not sitting on the executive committee of the County Democratic Party at this point, correct?
Correct.
Have you ever been a member of the executive committee?
Yes, I was a member of I was a central committee precinct person and also an executive.
And when did you resign from that position, if you know?
Well, I didn't resign. I didn't get, it just kind of, they got new leadership and it phases out and I didn't win
I
you have to
see.
be a precinct committee person in order to be.
Oh,
Okay.
it's different. For the primary.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Thomas, so you interrupted. You had other
No,
questions
it's
for
okay,
me?
it's expected. Something that's just handed to me. Are you familiar with this?
No, what is it?
Is democratic leadership.
Where is this coming from? Who's submitting it?
Our legal counsel advised that we get a current copy since it's just presented as a screenshot. And
Ms.
Mary,
Sticken asked,
yeah,
she mentioned it earlier and asked how she could get it into evidence. I suggested, Mary ripped that off.
Okay, are we putting in the evidence for the protester and the,
no, what happened was we were given a screenshot, which said Ohio Democratic Caucus. And I did say, oh, if you look at the website, it is, the picture's still there.
I don't really think it's our role to be providing.
He
presenting
advised that,
evidence.
that it can be shown as current. So I didn't want to, because I didn't want it.
Yeah.
They said that earlier, so.
And further, the state has no control over what's posted. She has no role in that.
And can I add to that then, if it's going to be submitted, that actually, if you go to the Ohio House of Representatives page, which is the official page for the State House, I am identified as an independent. So I can't speak to, what the Democratic leadership, that is not the official State House page. That looks like it is the Ohio Democratic, I don't know.
Just the caucus.
Oh, it's the caucus's page.
Yeah.
I've never honestly even gotten on the page. I don't know what that is, but if you go to the Ohio House of Representatives, it shows that I am an independent.
And you have your own section on that page, correct?
On the.
Ohio House, yes,
Yes,
and you put out your own press releases, correct? I mean,
No.
well, where it says you in the news, if you were to click on it, there was a joint press release. The one that we're referring to dated I think it's July 29th with Bill Seitz, where you were identified as a Democrat.
And so I did not put out that press release.
It's on your section of the website, though.
I understand, but
Okay.
your
But your-
question was, did I put that press release out?
Did your
No, I
staff
not.
put that there, or you wouldn't know?
I honestly, I wouldn't know. We've been home since June 1st, but
Okay.
I did not put that press release out. And my staff wouldn't have put that press release out. What date is it dated for?
It's the one dated July 29th, and it's on your section of the website.
It could honestly just be an error, because originally when I reached out to the House to ask, how did I get the D removed from my name? Because after I withdrew from the caucus, it was still showing the D. The response we got, and we do have a copy of that email, was that there was no way to do that. They're only familiar with two parties. However, they've since updated it. They now have an I on there.
Well, yes, but I'm referring to the specific release because that was July 29th, and it is on your section of the website if you go there according to the documents provided. Additionally, too, there's media that goes through August, where I know media outlets identified you as a Democrat as part of the Democrat sponsor of a bipartisan bill with a fellow Republican. I guess what I would ask is, did you ever contact any of these media outlets in writing to correct any of this if you felt you were an independent?
Unfortunately, I don't see everything that media puts out, most of which Ms. Taylor introduced and announced. I'm not aware of those individuals. My Zoom interview that I did with Morgan True, there was no conversation or discussion of me being a Democrat. We did that via Zoom. So what's played and showed, I have no idea. But what I will say is that I put out a press release also saying that I was no longer a member of the Democratic Party and why I was running as an independent. And that was on August the 1st. The press release that I did put out was a $120 million infrastructure money that was brought back to the district, and it does not have a D by my name, because this is when I became aware that there was no separation of the parties, but they've since figured out a way to change it.
And also, you did say in your statement that part of why you wanted to become an independent or unaffiliated, I should say, was because you felt that there was extremism in both parties. But I do notice your social media from after this June 10th date, you keep tagging Ohio House Dems and other Democrats. Do you have a post where you, in a campaign sense, tag the Ohio Republican Caucus?
Actually, if you look at the post that I put up about House Bill 708, I tagged my colleague.
I'm not referring to the bipartisan bill. I'm talking about like the social media posts we were showing were campaign posts. Get out and vote, support these candidates. I'm appearing at these events, you know, and you're tagging the Ohio House Dems. Do you have anything, I guess I would say, similar, where you're saying, here's Republicans to vote for, or here's a Republican event?
No, because I'm running as an independent, and what you're seeing for them are issues that I do agree with the Democratic Party on. And so I'm tagging them because they're issues that we both are in likeness with. The same thing I did for House Bill 708 with Bill Seitz.
And you are posting on the Ohio Democrat, or I should say, I think it was Maple Heights Democrat page after the June 10th deadline. Do you post on any Republican pages in a similar fashion?
Again, I don't know if I posted that or if it was shared from
No,
my
it looked like it
page.
was your post, but that was in the packet. So I'm just going off what was presented to us. Okay.
Mr. Thomas, any other questions from Ms. Davis or from the board members?
With respect to what was given out today, this packet of information, how could you identify this? Were you responsible for this articles or these postings?
Again, I'm not responsible for anything that comes by way of third party. And as a state representative, there's so many different things going on. I honestly don't know who's reporting what or when. If I focused on that, I probably wouldn't be able to do much of anything else. I put out a press release announcing that I was an independent and my reason for running for that. And I shared it with every media outlet. So everything that I have put out to self-identify myself has been clear and concise and related to what's required of me to run in this capacity.
Do we have a copy of that? I'm not sure I
Well,
saw that.
So, I'm glad you asked, Ms. Shalom. So to make the record clear, Mr. Thomas, you're referring to what Ms. Taylor had introduced. So why don't you refer to a specific page number?
Oh, yeah,
Because
those numbers.
first.
there's a plethora of documents she provided. Some were newspaper articles done by third parties. Some were tweets apparently done by Ms. Davis. So I don't know, why don't you get specific? It was kind of a general comment.
Yeah.
I think that we didn't go through the whole thing, but what we did go through was enough for her to say, she's not responsible for that. That was all done by a third party. And she does not claim again responsibility for this. So that's a general statement that, you know, we could take the time and go specifically one by one. But I don't think that would be a good.
Well, let me just, I mean, I appreciate you kind of just addressing this head on. If you go to document 9 in that package from Ms. Taylor.
Document page 9.
Yeah. So it says, Ms. Taylor wrote June 22nd, 2022, and in it, it says legislative spotlight. Representative Davis is a proud part of the Democratic. Now, this is after you signed a petition declaring you're going to be an independent. So is that from you or is that from a third party, Ms. Davis?
That is from my staff. And I honestly did not check that, but this is, you know, these are issues that I am in agreement with, and they are, you know, predominantly issues that Democrats support, but these are the bills that I was on and how I supported those bills.
Yeah, the language is that you are proud to be a part of the Democratic Caucus plan to protect a particular position or legislation. It doesn't say that you are a Democrat there. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you, Michelle.
If I refer you to page 22 in the packet, it's your social media. And if you refer, especially the tweet from June 21, Cuyahoga County Democrats, plural, referring to yourself as a Democrat on June 21st.
So I don't post on, this is Twitter. I don't post on my Twitter, and I don't know why.
But you would agree that is your account with your picture and your name.
It is the account that my staff uses to periodically post things on, correct?
So you're saying that your staff did this?
Well, it's clear. It says, check out where Davis's interview. So it's identifying me as a secondary, third party person.
And did you have a chance to approve this before it was posted?
Unfortunately, I did not. Even that one, Cuyahoga County Democrat rep writes, we need Rep Shayla Davis. It doesn't say I, Shayla Davis.
Can you speak to the July 29th, let's see what page is that on? Page 38. This press release. Did I understand your testimony to believe you did not, you don't put this out? Who put this particular press release out? Was that from your office?
So it could have been from my office, but they worked through the social media and marketing, the comms department. They worked in the comms department to partner and send those out.
So I'm sorry, what was you saying? That a yes or no?
Did you really?
No, I'm sorry.
Are you not quoted in that press release?
Yes, I am quoted in the press release.
So you were unaware that there was a press release if you gave a quote?
Well, I give quotes all the time, and we have quotes teed up for the bills that, you know, I'm sponsoring.
Was your staff unaware that you unaffiliated? Did you not talk to them about it?
No, they were absolutely aware, because this is the exact same day that I withdrew from the office.
But
So-
you would agree though that you circulated though on June 10th, 2022.
Yes, I did circulate, but I did not circulate this press release, no.
All right, and you would agree though that when the petitions were circulated on June 10th of 2022, those signing it were under the impression that you were circulating as an independent candidate.
100%.
Do you have the document that you indicated you issued on July 29th?
The withdrawal from the caucus. Is that?
Yeah, do you have that?
He doesn't have it printed out, but can we get that printed out?
Well, you can forward it to Ms. Bajani. She can give you your email address and then she can print that out.
Yeah, that would be helpful for us to see. So I don't know if you had a chance to hear our Brent Lawler, our petition service, Kennedy Petition Services Manager, identify the observations they made, they being Mr. Lawler and then the registration manager. And I think our chair went through some of those statements with you, that you did not win the election, so you were not holding an office as Democratic County Central Committee person. Is that correct? That you're not a part of the executive committee. I think we heard you testify about that. And that you said that you were listed on the House member directory as an independent.
Yes.
When did that get?
I'm not sure when they changed it, but I just looked at it sitting out there because I heard, I can't remember who stated it, but they said that I was showing up as a Democrat, so I pulled it up at my seat and it has an I by my name.
You don't know when that was.
There was, I do have an email chain of asking for that to be changed from the point in time in which I withdrew from the caucus, and they originally stated that they couldn't, and then I just happened to pull it up and I see that.
Can you send us that email string?
Yes.
And then did I understand from the materials I read or meeting materials that you did not cast a partisan ballot in the August 2nd primary?
Correct, I did not.
Thank you. So the question about that.
Right, and there was no issues ballot available for Maple Heights, correct? I mean, you didn't vote at all.
I'm
in
in
the
Garden
primary.
Heights. But
Or, I'm sorry, apologies, yes. Okay, and, but you did vote in May, obviously,
Correct.
because you were on the ballot as well.
correct.
Okay.
So much.
So are you done with the emails? I just don't want to ask you a question while you're busy with something.
Well,
else.
he's putting it in, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Okay. So back to I just have a couple questions. Back to the petitions. I'm just going to make this part of the record. Okay, you've got a copy of those. I think, did you get a copy of the voter information report too?
Yes.
Okay, and there were, I believe, 12 circulators. One was a Republican, Kevin Kuzma. There were 2 unaffiliated, and the other 9 were Democrats. Is that correct?
Yes.
Right.
It does appear Kevin only got 3 signatures.
He was a circulator, though. I
Yeah,
just asked
right.
for
I'm just-
everyone to
Am I
circulate.
correct on that, though? Yes, okay, all right. 3 signatures.
I'll ask that be part of the record too. And with these emails, I'm assuming Mary or Skip are going to run them off and present copies to us. We're going to have to wait for that.
Yes.
Okay. It works both ways, Mr. Thomas, right?
Yes, it does.
Just want to be consistent. We're going to take a moment for those. Are there other questions for Ms. Davis or Mr. Thomas while we're waiting for these emails from the board? Yes.
There is a lot of paper. I have to clean it.
Yes.
I know.
I tried.
You do.
I tried, but you still see it.
Yeah.
The need for this fire.
Oh, yeah, like how we, yeah.
I don't mind what we were like flopping.
It does all things that take hours too.
It's, yeah,
I agree.
and jumping all over the place. It's not
Yeah. Right, right. Yeah, right.
Really? Make it bigger.
We're waiting for them to make copies. Is that it now?
Yes, I think you're printing the email.
Oh, great, thanks.
Are there just 2 pages we're getting?
Yeah, we've got one more.
We have a press release. I thought there was mention of a press
Something
release.
else.
Oh, my
August.
press release, I did not forward that. I'm sorry.
Okay, well, let's do this. Why don't you figure out what Ms. Chappelle's doing is kind of throwing some softballs here, suggesting.
Well, I
I mean, I
mean,
agree,
we got
I
it
agree,
coming
right,
from,
right,
you know, we
right.
have testimony, we have people
I agree.
introduce it, yeah.
So
I mean, I wanna
what
see
I'm
it.
getting at is if there's any evidence you want to introduce in support of your position, introduce it. If you need a moment to discuss that, I mean, Ms. Chappelle's point is well taken. If you have a press release, you should be giving it to this board. So is there anything else that you want to talk about? Mr. Thomas, do you, Ms., do we need to meet again and forward any other press releases?
We don't need to.
I sent it.
We both sent the same thing, and that was her disaffiliation with the caucus.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
whatever you have, whatever you said you were gonna finish, which we haven't.
So are we waiting for something from Skip?
Yes.
Okay, and what is that?
It should be the press release. What you have, what I believe that I see over there is the correspondence back and forth. with my
Give them a
staff.
copy, please, for the record of what they've submitted.
This is the correspondence from my staff going back and forth after learning that they had not changed my affiliation on the website.
Okay, why don't you walk us through that then, okay?
And does Ms. Taylor have a copy of this?
Yes.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry. Okay.
All right, so why don't you walk us through this document, please?
So I reached out to my staff and said, hey, did you have they changed things on the website? And I told her.
Excuse me, Mr. Why don't we start with the chain? So it says
Okay.
from Jacqueline Mulvane.
That
Is
was
that-
Jacqueline's response back to my staff. So my staff originally reached out to find out how we removed the D from my name. And so Jacqueline's response. Hello, one of the representatives, Shayla L. Davis, has switched her party from Democrat to Independent. I was wondering how we can switch her party affiliation under the member directory, as well as her personal webpage. Thanks so much.
Okay, thank you. And then the response to that?
Are you talking about the August 9th email?
Yeah, it just keeps saying below is her response. That is not what's printed here, though.
So there looks to be, there's an August 9th email, and then there's an August 10th email.
Oh,
Below,
okay, I'm sorry. This was Jacqueline reaching out to the person, whoever handles the website. So Jacqueline, I guess, is in comms. And so she was reaching out
in
to
what?
communications.
Okay.
So she was reaching out to the website developer, asking that question because my staff reached out to her, and there actually is no response back from that outside of that my staff was reaching out to ask what needed to be done in order for it to be changed.
Oh,
Okay.
I'm doing
I know.
Sometimes.
That could be confusing in Outlook too.
It is.
Cluster.
The flags, there's
Right.
Something I want. Something. When the title's gone.
You're not wrong on that.
All right, I'm gonna move on to some other business, and if we're gonna be waiting here. I'm assuming you're waiting for this printout? Okay. I'm gonna move to item 14. Approval to terminate the contract with 10X Software Solutions, providing online poll worker management solution software, election force with the authority of subdivision I-3 of Article 4 of the contract. Ms. Susie.
Business Services Manager. At this time, we're terminating the contract with Connect Software for the election force. It has not been working properly, and we just felt we had to terminate because our staff would not have time to remedy the issues that we have with the software.
And if I can just add a little bit to that. So this is a contract that back in February, this board, we suspended this contract. And so, and 10X was to make enhancements to the program, and 10X has made enhancements to the program. However, for us to feel comfortable with implementing it, to fully vet it, takes time. August 2nd threw a monkey wrench in that, and that would have been the window of time when we really would have vetted that. So now we roll from August 2nd to now we're already in the recruitment phase for November, and it's not prudent to try to test and implement at this point in time. Then we were going to roll right into new voting equipment, which will be the key focus on that from an agency standpoint. So it just didn't seem to be a good time to give the due diligence to test this, to implement it. 10X was doing what they were supposed to do, and you're not going to implement anything in the presidential year of 24. So that takes us to 25. So at this point, instead of stringing them along, we're going to terminate the contract. And we implemented utilized different software for both May and August. We're successful. We'll continue to do that. And a lot of that is like mass communications to staff and the self sign up for training classes. So we have been able to successfully function with it. And in 2025, maybe we'll take another look and see if it's something that we would be interested in, or if there's something different, or what we're currently doing is the best way for us to go.
Can you remind me whether, and I remember when we suspended use of that product, did we suspend the payments associated with that product, use of that product?
Yes, we did. So actually, 10X did not invoice us for 2022. They had the ability, it would have been prorated. It probably would have been about 3 months or so of payment that would be owed to them. But in being a partner, they said, no, we're not going to invoice you. So we have not paid anything for this product, and we won't pay anything for this
We're
product.
not using it, and it wasn't working correctly. It's my understanding of it.
Yeah, it was there was some speed issues with it, and some reports that we wanted to be able to see that it didn't do at that point in time.
And the enhancements that they were providing are at no cost to us, is my understanding.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Because those are also
Yeah. Fixes.
enhancements
These are
for
fixes.
all customers. Yes.
Yeah,
they're
okay.
fixes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Pilati or Ms. Susi? And 10X is aware of this and is not objecting.
Tony had a call with them, and they understood, and we're professional.
Okay. Mr. Mussins looked at this and approved?
Yes.
Okay, yes. Thank you. Then I will move to approve to terminate that contract with 10X Software Solutions, providing online poll worker management solution software, election force under the authority of subdivision I3, Article 4 of the contract. There's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I will move to approve to send the voter information guide to active voter households in Cuyahoga County for the November 8th, 2022 general election. If there's a second.
Second.
Thank you. Ms. Susi, are there any comments or questions? you have on that?
No, other than just like the last voter information guide, we are sending them to households, which is around 500,000.
We're household.
Households.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Savings.
That was just my question, because I thought we had an issue before about sending to PO boxes, and then there was, was that really getting to the voters, or, in the household? Okay, but just for households.
Right.
Okay,
So this way, regardless who lives there, that street address goes at that location.
got it.
Sure.
Okay, any other question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. I'll move to approve the vouchers set forth in the agenda. Those vouchers are in the amount of $45,180 for Vermont moving and storage, and also enterprise rental cars for the rental of minivans, $27,814.29. There's a second.
Second.
All those, any question or comment? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Sorry, I was reading. Aye.
Me too.
All right, thank you. That motion passes. We're back here. I think this is have you provided a copy to Ms. Taylor Stipp and, okay. All right, then we'll move on to the final item, Public Referral Friend Program. The new
Yes.
Business.
So new business refer a friend program. So earlier in this year, Secretary LaRose's office made all 88 boards of elections aware of a refer a friend poll worker recruitment tool that the Franklin County Board of Elections was utilizing, and encouraged other boards to see if they could engage in this program. So we do want to go ahead and follow Franklin County's lead with this program. And what the basic outline is that individuals, current poll workers who sign up to work in the November 8th election, once they confirm that they would work, they would be able to provide us with up to 2 names of individuals who they are recommending to work as a poll worker. There is a deadline of September 25th for them to provide those names. And then what we will do is we created a window that as long as they have not been a poll worker between 2017 to present, we would consider them to be new. 2017 is when we rolled out electronic poll books. So it's if someone was a poll worker previously in the non-EPB world and wanted to get back into it, they would qualify. So then what would have to happen is the person who is the worker who confirms would have to in fact work on November 8th, and the person they refer would have to successfully complete training and work in the November 8th election. Our staff would have a database of who these individuals are. In post-election, we would be able to reference to see that everyone meet that criteria. If so, for the current worker who was referring, they would get a $25 recruitment incentive added to their pay when we process poll worker payroll. This would not require an additional appropriation. Funds that are left over from the August 2nd poll worker payroll that weren't expended would be used to cover this. We did discuss with Mark, and Mark's one comment was it's just whoever would be interested in doing it for the criteria, we'd have to go ahead and offer that program to them during the period of time in which we had it open, and we would be able to do that fund wise. We would hope to get 500 new people this way. Would be positive. I don't know if it would actually happen, but it's just another thing that we can try to do to get some more people in the pipeline to work for this upcoming November election. And so that's what we would like to do. If the board is, they would approve that, then what we would do is this week, we're already looking to send out notifications to our current poll workers saying, hey, it's time to sign up, and we would make mention of it. They're going to get a notification this week regardless of whether the program is authorized or not.
Is this something the SOS is aware of that we're doing?
The SOS brought it to our attention.
Right, so
Yeah,
they know that we're making it $25 or?
we didn't tell them what the dollar amount was.
What do they want us to?
They're doing 10. We kind of thought that doesn't really motivate people to do a whole heck of a lot for $10. And working with fiscal, $25, we definitely can. If all 4,000 people referred someone, we would still be able to cover that cost.
Well, it's only for new workers.
Only for new workers, and we do have a September 25th deadline in which we would want those names in. We could extend it, but we want to put some controls into this. And we also want to encourage our returning workers to sign up sooner than later. Because the sooner we know who we have working, obviously the better it is, and it's easier going into election day as far as what our resources are.
So how long has Columbus done it? How many times?
I believe they did it for May and August.
Do you know, did they have any problems like, oh, we forgot to have a cutoff date for, when people could apply, or
We did not hear of any
any
issues.
issues that they had administering it? Okay. All right, great. Any other questions?
No, that was a great idea.
Okay, is that something that we need approval on, I guess?
I think it would be good to.
Okay. Well, I will move to approve the poll worker referral fund program as set forth in our agenda today and explained by Director Ballot. If there's a second.
Second.
Any other question or comment? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right, then, we're through that business. Back to Ms. Taylor and Ms. Davis. Are they here? I know you're here, Ms. Davis. Could you see where they're at, please? And start lining up this hearing.
I guess, it's all right, while we're waiting for that, I just want to circle back to September 13th, the Berea recall election. On Friday, the ballot department, Ryan Cleary, provided Midwest with the ballots today, or the approval to print. Today, in this meeting, Midwest Direct has provided us with proofs of those ballots, of which the staff that's remaining at Haley will go through those. As long as we get through clean proofs, what that means then is that Midwest should be able to have ballots delivered to us tomorrow for early in person, which means then we would open up on Wednesday. When that happens, we will put on our website, we'll notify the media, and we'll let the mayor of Berea know that we are open for in-person voting.
Anything else? All right, we're getting some final documents here. We're gonna start winding up this hearing. We've had a chance, Mr. Thomas, to get all the documents you'd like to submit.
That is correct.
Okay.
I believe we can circulate it now.
Why don't you walk us through these documents then? Do you have copies? Has Ms. Taylor been given a copy? Okay. Okay, we'll let Ms. Taylor get a copy, and then if everybody's got copies, then we can proceed. Okay, you got a copy, Ms. Taylor?
Yeah.
Okay, why don't you walk us through this, Mr. Thomas, these two documents we provided?
Very good. There are two. I thought there should be three. Here's the press release.
Okay, let's go one at a time then. Okay, where's the press release? Hold it up so
That
we,
is the press release.
okay, show it up for all of us, so we know you have a copy.
No.
Could you give Mr. Thomas a copy of the documents you submitted?
Here we go. This one here, the date August 4th.
This is the press release.
Okay, thank you. Let's just get the record straight. That's all I want to do. So the press release, go ahead, comment on it.
So this is when I announced that I was no longer going to be a part of the Democratic Party and that I was running as an independent for the House District 15.
Okay.
That announcement was sent out to all of the media, to the public. The second documentation is the email chain.
Let's identify it, okay?
Okay.
So what is it dated? Does it have a number, an exhibit on it?
So it has a date on it of August 4th, because we waited until I was actually verified and certified from Board of Elections.
I don't know what you're talking about.
At the
The
bottom,
press
right here, the
release.
press release. At
Okay,
the
I thought
bottom
we're done
here.
with the press release.
Oh, you said you
She's
wanted the
identifying
dates,
it
right?
for you,
Okay,
I
right.
guess.
Yes,
You're
I thought that we were too.
We'll call number one.
Let's call it Exhibit A, okay?
Okay, Exhibit A is the press release
All right.
that has the date in which that was submitted to all of the media once the petitions were certified.
Got it?
Okay.
Okay. Exhibit B would be the withdrawal email from the caucus.
Which one is
Can we
that one?
put that, show that?
Probably this.
I have
Yes.
two similar ones, or we can.
That's not it. This is the email chain. It should be just one single page.
Oh, this?
Yes.
Okay, I don't know what you're referring to, so let's circulate it and show us what your Exhibit B
We
is.
don't have it. In one single document.
It's this one. This one. I think
One
it's this
single
one.
page and up to the upper right-hand corner,
It's not
the
linked
line.
to anything. It's one
822.
individual page.
upper left-hand corner,
Yeah.
82222,
Yeah.
1057.
This has DeLorean's name at the top.
No, sorry.
Oh.
Well, wait, you're showing a different document now.
Oh, that one.
It's a single page.
Exhibit B.
Exhibit B is a single page document dated 7/29. It was sent to all of the Democratic
Two
Caucus.
No, wait a minute, we are now.
Yeah, it's that, it's,
He showed us a page that was different than what you're
Okay,
describing.
you know, Mr. Thomas, we're gonna, would you please mark your exhibits, okay, for us? Okay,
Yeah,
and then,
There
and
you go.
then, so I just want to get a good record here.
Right, I think she was describing it different.
Okay, so would you
He was
please pass that through the board? Tony, would you walk that through and make sure each board member has a copy?
Perfect, thank
Let
you.
me- Let me see.
So B, yeah, so this is B.
So that's B, okay.
Okay,
Page document.
perfect.
Okay. So now do you have another exhibit?
Exhibit C
Okay.
is the email correspondence exchange between my staff and the Ohio House of
Okay,
Representatives
please walk that through and mark
communication
it.
staff regarding changing the D to an I and what that looks like, and the fact that they said they couldn't do it, but it now has
C,
been updated.
yes, perfect.
first one.
Okay, that's C. All right.
Yeah.
Is B part of C, probably?
Yeah.
No, it's different.
So this one's called.
So there's three separate documents.
Okay, those are the three documents
Correct.
that you're submitting. Okay. All right then. Those are the documents. Are there any comments in regards to that or questions you have, Mr. Davis, Ms. Thomas, in regards to those documents? I mean, they speak for themselves, the way I view it, but.
Yeah, they pretty much speak for themselves, and what they actually indicate is her disaffiliation with the Democratic Party, whether it was directly to the Democratic Caucus or through the press release, the community at large, and the email chain was to demonstrate back and forth her questioning, her staff questioning, how do you go about having her status changed across the board? And that's what that series of emails is all about.
Okay. Any questions for Ms. Davis?
Yeah, I do.
Please.
Ms. Davis, while you're here under oath, I think, for the record, do you believe that you have made a good faith effort to disaffiliate any party?
100% I do.
Okay, any other questions for Ms. Davis? Nothing? Okay, we'll hear Ms.
Actually, I do have a
Taylor.
question.
Okay,
I'm
go
sorry,
ahead.
I don't mean to prolong this, but in the one email, you indicate to the House Democrats that you look forward to continue to work with the members of the caucus. Are you intending to caucus with the Democrat caucus as an independent?
I haven't decided upon that, but it's to continue to work because I do have to go back in November when we return, and I will, regardless of the election and me running, I still have to work with, the membership that's currently there now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Taylor, you may come up and ask any questions of Ms. Davis if you'd like. You can have a step over here to that podium if you would. That
Oh,
podium.
yes.
Ms. Taylor, are there any questions you have of Ms. Davis? Is that mic on? Can you turn it on?
There's no mic.
Can you hear her, Steve, or no?
Not too much. No.
Okay, then you're gonna have to come over here. There's no way we can turn that mic on?
Chair.
Ms. Davis, how long have you been a state representative for District 11? She needs to come over after we.
Yeah, that would be easier. There you go.
February 15th, 2022.
And were you appointed or elected? If you appointed or elected?
I was appointed by the Ohio, well, the entire Ohio House Chamber.
Do you serve or sit on any committees? And if so, who appointed you?
I do serve on committees. We're currently in recess, and the Speaker of the House appointed me to those committees.
Were you referred by the Ohio House Caucus or legislation to the Speaker of the House for those committee seats?
Yes.
How long have you been a Democrat?
I'm no longer a Democrat, I'm an independent.
You stated that on your State House website, you were an independent as of today. Do you know when that was changed officially?
I do not know when the official change, because they stated they were unable to change it. However, I noticed it was updated.
On July 3rd, 2022, did it still state that you were a Democrat on the Ohio House legislation page?
I am not certain. I didn't look on July 3rd.
Well, page 6 of your documents on July 3rd is a catched image of the July 3rd website of the Ohio House Democratic representative members in the state session.
What document are you referring to?
Page 6. in
Page
her,
6.
so it's a sheet of this. I might be that way.
Have you,
So I'm looking at page 6, but I don't see any.
In the lower right-hand corner of page 6.
Yes, I see what you're saying.
have you spoken with, reached out to the Independent Ohio groups or Independent Ohio voters?
Nonpartisan, yes, because they signed my petition.
Well, I mean specifically the independent groups that are in Ohio, like the Independent Voters of Ohio. A very large group here.
I have not.
Your attorney here today, is he paid or pro bono? Have you received any monies from the Democrat PACs or parties?
No,
Let me just pick up on that question because it is, you haven't had to file a report, correct, Ms. Davis?
correct.
Have you formed a committee when you, after you were appointed as a Democratic member of the House? Did you form a campaign committee?
I did not.
You did not. So you don't have a campaign committee.
I do have one now. I formed one when I pulled petitions to run as an independent.
So just recently.
Yes,
Okay. So there were no contributions then to you from February to July.
February to, I would say June, because June is when my treasurer filed with the state and here with the Board of Elections.
The only committee you had was when you were Mayor Garfield, or ran for Mayor Garfield Heights. Is that correct?
I had my city council committee
Right.
and then that changed to mayor and then we formed this committee for the House.
Have you written, I mean, I don't know what the law permits. Have you, is that committee still active, the local committee? Does it have a balance?
Well, it's the same, you just switch over the paperwork and file it, identifying what party affiliation that you have.
I guess my question is, since June 10th, 2022, have you written any checks from that account to Democratic office holders, if you know?
Actually, I can't answer, I don't handle that, the treasurer does, but I would, I don't want to, I don't know if I should answer, because I don't know.
If you don't know, then you don't know.
I
I
don't
understand. Okay.
I would say no, but I don't know.
All right.
So just to be clear, the committee that you created for your current position for state representative candidate 18, you have not received any money for your campaign yet?
No, that's not correct, I have received money.
Again, have you received any monies from the Democrat leadership in the House? Maybe Russo or any of the Democrat PACs?
I have not.
Have you received any help in caucusing from the Democrat caucus or the Ohio Black Legislative Caucus after June 10th?
Received help and I don't understand in what regard, what are you asking?
Have you received any help in caucusing any legislation after June 10th with the Ohio Democrat caucus or the Ohio Black Legislative Caucus?
No, my most recent legislation was with Republican for board sites.
Correct, but on your end, did you get help or caucus with the Democrats?
No, we haven't been in session since June 1.
Have you attended after June 10th any Garfield Heights, Maple Heights, or Cleveland Democrat PAC meetings?
Are you talking about ward club meetings?
Democrat ward meetings.
I have attended ward club meetings for House District 11, which I currently represent.
Were they Democrat board meetings or board meetings open to anyone?
Well, they're open to me as an independent because I'm the current state representative.
were the Democrat board meetings?
I think you asked that question and she answered, okay? So we want to move on, Ms. Taylor.
Let's go into your TV and appearances. You appeared on TV 3 separate occasions as a Democrat. And I think the board already asked if you reached out to correct any of the media, but I didn't hear. So did you reach out to correct any of the media of the that was put out after June 10th?
My response to the board and my response to you would be, I'm not exactly sure what media you're talking about, but I can't follow every single media outlet that reports something on me as a state representative.
Do you write and release your own press release?
No, however, the press release that I submitted as Exhibit A, I did write that, and it states that I'm running as an independent. So I did reach out to all media outlets to send that to them.
Your attorney stated in your response that your good faith statement was made on June 10th. Is that correct?
Correct.
Have you notified your constituents of your independent status?
Yes, by circulating the petitions and putting out the press release.
Who was the press release sent to?
All media outlets and anyone in my email database.
On House Bill 708, it says that you're a bipartisan, it's a bipartisan bill. You caucus this as a Democrat. Why not an independent?
I didn't caucus anything.
I'm sorry, you introduced bipartisan House Bill 708 as a Democrat. Why didn't you introduce it as an independent?
I did not introduce it as a Democrat.
Your press release says that you introduced it as a Democrat.
Ms. Taylor, I mean,
Let's go on to the.
let's move on. I mean, it's a lot of this has been discussed and the board's aware of it, so.
So this email that you sent stating that you are now independent was sent on August 4th. Why didn't you send it out in June 10th when you first made your good faith statement?
As I stated to the board previously, because I was waiting to ensure that I was certified so that individuals would know that I was good to go, I actually would be running for the seat. I had to wait for the board to certify my petition.
So are you an independent because you want to be a candidate, or are you an independent because you would really believe that the parties, as you stated earlier, are driving the wedge between the people?
I clearly stated earlier that there's a lot of party divisiveness, and I want to be able to promote and support the things that I do that will benefit and enhance the district.
But you decided to announce that you were independent, not when you felt in June 10th that there were divisions, but after you were okay as a candidate, right?
No. Pulling the declaration on June 10th solidified that I was running as an independent for that reason.
But you didn't.
Ms. Taylor,
Okay.
we're gonna move on because I'm ready to start having some debate among the members and deciding this matter.
Okay.
All right, do you have much more to go here?
I was just addressing now the things that they presented today.
The exhibits.
The exhibits
Okay,
today.
go ahead.
So again, I don't know what the zip this is because it wasn't marked, but it's an email between, is it B?
What's the one sheet?
C, the one sheet is B, that's
See
not the
it's
one.
email.
One sheet is B,
Oh.
A has the, press release, and C is an email exchange. Okay.
The request C, to be switched was sent after August 9th and subsequently after August 29th. Why didn't you send this June 10th when you made your good faith statement?
June 29th has not arrived, August 29th hasn't come yet, but that was submitted by my staff once they realized that the website had not been updated. And so the question went out, what needed to be done to ensure that was done, because I was no longer a Democrat.
Do you have access to your social media?
Which social media? Are you asking my state house social media?
Do you have access to Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram social media, which that I presented in the package?
On behalf of my representatives, no.
Sorry. Okay, page 39. Do you have access to your Twitter account?
Yes, I have access to all of it. I can pull it up on my phone. Yes.
On June 29th, did you post, and this is on page 39, did you post, I recently introduced Sentencing Fairness Act. This bill would allow nonviolent offenders to secure their release and reduction and so on. Did you post this?
I did not.
Is your staff,
Well, excuse me, Miss Shaw, I'm going to start, but my question is, clearly someone posted this, Ms. Davis, so who posted it then? You did it.
My staff.
Your staff did, okay, all right. That's it. Anything else, Ms. Taylor? Okay, great. Mr. Thomas, if you could briefly, Ms. Taylor, if you want to have a 1 minute closing, I'll give Mr. Thomas a 1 minute closing, okay?
as attorney stated in the letter in response that a person cannot register as an independent party affiliation is a matter of self-identification. Ms. Davis and her attorney does not dispute that she generally voted a Democrat candidate and issues since 2004 and was appointed to her current state rep seat by the Democratic Party. Davis and her attorney do not dispute the fact presented by the protester that Davis is self-identified with the Democrat Party up until June 10th, 2022. It has been presented by the protester that State Representative Shayla L. Davis up till a week ago self-identified as a Democrat. Based upon the forego law, the candidate claims that this affiliation was not made in good faith and it was not based on, it wasn't based on the evidence put out by, it is based on the evidence put out by Rep. Shayla L. Davis in her office. Attorney Thomas states in his closing letter, according to a decision by the board precluding Ms. Davis from running as an independent candidate as a matter of the violation of her First Amendment rights of free speech, preventing Ms. Davis access to the ballot. An independent candidate as an independent candidate would be unlawful and unconstitutional on her ability to exercise her speech rights as an independent and to associate with others who are like-minded. Again, the only like-minded voters Rep. Davis associates with and shares ideas with are those of the Democratic Party. Thomas attempting to erroneously use the First Amendment to persuade the board's decision to support Davis's unlawful independent candidate bid for a state representative seat, District 18. I request that the board remove Shayla L. Davis as a qualified independent candidate because she is a Democrat and not independent as proven in the evidence provided. As referred in Jovette versus Houston, Secretary Houston and the Ohio Court of Appeals, in which Jovette lost. Jovette's decision was based on to run as an independent for the State House seat, was driven by opportunism, and Jovette was ineligible because he was still affiliated with the Republican Party. He was a Republican and still is to this day. In fact, not an independent. Davis is a Democrat, and I'm sure she will continue to vote in caucus with the Democrats in the future. In short, at the very least, the board should throw out all petitions submitted by Ms. Davis between June 10th and July 29th, because Ms. Davis introduced legislation, voted on bills, made several press releases, made appearances in the news and social media posts as a Democrat or showing allegiance to the Democratic Party and their views. The board should reject all petitions collected by Shayla Davis between that time because the petitions were not collected in good faith and not in conjunction with the declaration of an independent. I at least humbly ask Ms. Davis to uphold the law she was appointed to and represent and withdraw her independent candidate bid for State Representative District 18 and save the board from ruin.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Mr. Thomas, on behalf of the state.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On behalf of Ms. Taylor, we believe strongly that Ms. Taylor has not proven her case by a clear and convincing standard and burden of proof by virtue of her closing statement, as well as her protest letter itself and all of the other documentation that she presented here today. One piece that I'd like to just bring attention to that can be generalized. This document, where did it come from? Did it come from the board?
No.
Sticken.
No, it did not come from Mayor Bajani. What happened was, it was a screenshot, which was in the packet. Someone asked the date of the screenshot. It's from the Ohio Caucus website. Our legal counsel advised that, we aren't giving
Excuse me,
evidence or witnesses.
You've asked a fair
Yeah.
question. When
so
you say
Mayor
it's in a
Bajani-
package, what are you referring to?
That was, if you recall, remember there was a question on what is the date of the screenshot? You asked it, and it was from the Ohio.
What number was that?
Hold on. It was. Hold on. It was identified as number 3, and you had asked the question. What is this? And then
I see.
and it does have the website on it. And then when I pulled it up on the website, because it's still there, and I made that. If you recall, I did say that, but it's not for me to determine that. So Mary Bajani printed that out to confirm.
I see. So this is the full page
Right.
of this document.
Today's
Okay, that's
Yeah.
very good.
That was how that happened.
Sure. Yeah, I don't know if the board is aware that this is an old document. It still has the picture of Janine Boyd on here. She has not served in this capacity since May of this year.
Right. Well, I just think it was just pulled up today. So-
Sure, that's a, well, no.
And that's
I
good
know
noted,
your
yeah.
point.
Okay, so I just wanted to use that as a general, specific to a general observation that all of the other documentation that was presented, number one, was not promulgated by Ms. Davis. nor did she approve it, as I've stated earlier. But it boils down to the fact that in all of the presentations that were given by Ms. Taylor, they did not rise to, her factual presentation does not rise to a clear and convincing level that this board would denounce Ms. Davis's candidacy as an independent. That her candidacy was announced in good faith, and you've heard her arguments and her position and who she's fighting for as an independent and how she feels that she will be more effective as an independent than other affiliated political parties. Is there opportunity for Ms. Davis to say anything?
Sure.
Thank you, board members, for allowing me to speak this morning. I guess my wrap up would just be, I followed the procedure and put out the ask from the Board of Elections on what I needed to do once I made a personal decision to choose to run as an independent. And it's a very risky run because I'm now separating myself and disaffiliating from the Democratic Party. I'm doing this because I really want to represent people. As I stated, on June 1st was our last day in session, and there were some really ugly bills that came out. And as a woman, I feel that I have the right to stand up and defend and fight for other women throughout my district. And as you see from the 700 and some odd individuals within my district who signed the petition and circulated, it wasn't just Democrats, it wasn't just nonpartisan, it wasn't just Republicans. It was people, and I want to serve people, and that is why I am running.
Thank you, Ms. Davis. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Okay. No further questions, no further evidence. We put in a discussion among the board members. Are there any motions?
Yeah, I would move to deny the protest. Based on the evidence presented, I do think that Ms. Davis has sufficiently disassociated herself and made a good faith effort to do so. I struggle. I mean, some of the evidence, introduced by the protester and some of the argument would suggest that independent candidates don't caucus with Democrats or Republicans or take positions that may be promulgated by Republicans and or Democrats. So I do think that there has been a sufficient good faith self-identification as an independent. We've looked at voting history. We've looked at all of the information on required election related filings. I think there was a notator petition circulators were not only Democrats. We heard testimony that there were no financial contributions in the relevant time period, which I believe is after June 10th. June 10th and then after, that would suggest that there's still association with the Democratic Party. I do think, it's hard to say, because you see social media or media reports where others are identifying and reporting on the candidates that, may or may not be in error or may not change how a person has been identified in the past. So I don't think we can, the whole premise is self-identification. So it's not persuasive to me necessarily to be relying on third-party media or printouts that would still identify Ms. Davis as a Democrat. I think her post-petition conduct especially is consistent with her good faith effort to become and identify as an independent. Finally, I'm really instructed by our prior decisions in these kinds of cases. We've had a number of them in the past. And I think I've even said it's very difficult sometimes to get in somebody's head and say, oh, well, they are an independent or they're not an independent. But I think we have a history when we've considered these challenges of party affiliations of denying the protest where there is sufficient evidence that meets the standard, but that doesn't meet the standard rather, and allowed an individual to go ahead and be on the ballot as an independent. There was cases back in, we had quite a few back in 2010 and 2011 and 2012. And it just seems to me, and I know how I have voted, and I think in this case in particular, I don't think the protester satisfied the clear convincing standard. And so for that reason, I would make the motion to deny the protest.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Chappelle. Second,
I'll second the motion.
okay, is there discussion?
Yes, I don't support the motion. I think the proper inquiry for us as a board, obviously, is whether the independence candidate statement of non-affiliation has been made in good faith, and we did talk about that. And there's case law to that effect too. And even if you look at voting history alone is an insufficient basis to disqualify. I think Bruner herself wrote, however, voting history together with other facts tend to indicate party affiliation. They may be sufficient grounds to disqualify an independent. I agree with you in terms of our past voting history, because I looked at that too. It's just the problem is this year, the 2 primaries has been so irregular. And I think the facts of this case are unique, I would call them. You have someone who was appointed by the Democrat caucus in February. You have somebody who's been caucusing with them up until a certain point. The June 10th declaration is significant in my mind. And I did ask, whether or not, Ms. Davis believed that June 10th was, those signing saw her as an independent. She said 100%, absolutely. So after that declaration, June 10th as well, looking at the whole picture here, we did ask, was there a letter resigning from the caucus? We did find some emails and messages indicating, but they were dating back in August. I'm looking at one exhibit, and there was a press release that was August 4th. I know she did indicate it was after she was approved for the ballot, but that's not really the significant date in my mind. It's the June 10th date. Additionally, too, there was some case law, Gas versus Houston, 153, Ohio State 3rd, 630, which indicated there was a resignation letter, and there was an analysis of that about authenticity and whether there was an expressed desire to have further contact with the party. And I think that could go to social media. I understand Ms. Davis is saying that she didn't control all of her social media, but she did admit she had access to it. That is her name. Those are her official accounts. She is, tagging Ohio Democrat Caucus after this June 10th date, significant post and a press release. If I were to go to her, by her own admission, her website on the Ohio House Caucus page, or no, excuse me, not the caucus, the official page, I should say, this press release dated July 29th is there indicating she's a Democrat. So I would think that, her control over her social media accounts, her own webpage, would show the face she's putting forward to the constituents. And that to me goes to good faith. Additionally, there is some case law with respect to, I think it was the Guest case, again, 2018, Ohio 3161. In that case, there's an analysis of a nominating committee that was heavily 4 out of 5 Democrats for an independent candidate. I don't know if this is analogous or not, but in looking at what was provided to us with respect to the circulators for these petitions, I believe it was 8 Democrats, 1 unaffiliated, and 1 Republican who only got 3 signatures. So, I mean, that is a factor as well, just in terms of showing good faith, affiliation, desire to affiliate. Finally, another thing I asked myself was, were there public statements after executing the declaration of candidacy? Again, that's June 10th. That again goes to that, I believe, Joe Levet, if I'm saying it right, case versus Houston, which is cited in our manual with respect to sort of analyzing what good faith is. And I think, in that case, that was involving a Republican who did not completely undo his affiliation. And in my mind, you looked at all the social media posts, the comments, things put out by her, under her control, on her own page. And additionally, whether or not the media did label her and she was unaware of that, that is a question. But she did give those interviews as well, touting a bipartisan bill where it's bipartisan because she was supporting it as a Democrat. So, and that occurred after June 10th, these interviews. So for that reason, I don't support the motion, but thank you.
Mr. Gaffney?
I just want to point out, it was in your packet. It's page 73 in the board packet, not in
Okay.
this is a letter, a form filled out to the Secretary of State, dated 6/29/2022. Maybe don't have it by page. You do.
I don't think I have it.
Oh, I'm on this computer.
Yeah, he's on
It's in the
computer.
evidence,
You know what tab it would be by chance?
it's in the
It's
evidence.
the designation of treasure form, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just that it's
Oh,
it's got all the information, state rep, District 18, nonpartisan, election year 2022. It's signed and dated June 29th, 2022. Man, I think that's significant. It's a formal break of ties, changing your candidate, you know, what you're running for. I just want to enter that in. Found that significant. If you have, that's when you have.
I just, for purposes of.
Yeah, I'm on this.
For
Let's see,
purposes
it's
of-
in agenda item 2. Pass there, agenda item 3. It's in 3.
So just for purposes of the record, I want to make sure that part of the record here for purposes of Ms. Chappelle's motion and our discussions is that the board package that was put together by our board is part of the record.
right.
I will also ask that what Ms. Taylor introduced, these pages, I think totaling up to page 46, that she referred to, or very more, are part of the record. Additionally, that the documents Mr. Thomas introduced on behalf of Ms. Davis, documents A, B, and C be part of the record. Also, the petition circulated by Ms. Davis and the circulators be part of the record too, for purposes of this hearing. Are there any other documents that should be part of the record, Ms. Chappelle, that you feel?
No, I think we've covered everything that was introduced during the hearing, and then you've included our board meeting materials. I would note that the document that our colleague Terry McCafferty identified as in tab F3, so it's 3F.
Yes.
The treasurer designation of treasurer form dated June 29th, but that's included in the materials. that
It's
you
part
sent.
of the material. It's
So,
part of
but
the
I
record.
just found it, so, yeah. I think that covers all the exhibits.
Mr.
Mr. Chairman.
McCafferty, did you have any other exhibits you think should be part of this record?
No, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Sticken, any other documents?
Just because we have so much paper, we have Ms. Davis's 3, correct? And
Correct.
whatever Ms. Taylor presented, correct? Our packets themselves, and then you said that we did get copies of the petitions, and then also the voter
Yes,
information report, and that would be
Report.
included as well.
that's correct.
Okay, yes.
Nothing else? Okay,
Yeah,
good. So I'm sorry, Ms. McCafferty, you were pointing out
No.
the significance of that document, sir?
I will.
Okay. In support of Ms. Chappelle's
In
motion?
support.
Okay. Well, I thank you. Hearing none, it's been about 10 and a half years ago, as Michelle points out, that we've looked at something like this. In most cases, it's conduct that's post-filing. In her case, it's conduct that's pre-filing and conduct that's post-filing. And usually the conduct post-filing involves someone filing as independent and then a week or two later voting in a primary. That case law is clear. This is unique. I mean, this is a case of first impression, frankly. It is, disaffiliation with a political party largely involves an elector's inaction, not being involved. And as we all agree in Ohio, Ms. Davis can't just click her fingers and become an independent unless there's an issues ballot present for her at that time. There are many facts that are not in dispute. Since 2004, she's been voting as a Democrat. She was appointed to the Democratic Caucus, or she was appointed to the House as a Democrat via the recommendation of the Democratic Caucus, and correctly noted that the entire House, I guess, apparently approved her appointment. She was here in February of 2022 arguing for the board to be placed on the ballot as Democrat. For her signatures, our staff didn't feel the signature was sufficient. This board permitted her to appear as a Democrat. She appeared on the May 3rd ballot 111 days ago as a Democrat and lost that race for the Central Committee. She circulated petitions on June 10th, 2022 as an independent. And I don't know that there's complete agreement on that, but clearly to me, that's when you are an independent. And what is troubling to me is, well, it's a challenge to me. I want to look at each of these matters separately, but view them together in the context of being nominated, the factors that I've just considered. I think the broader context here is relevant to our inquiries. And after December or June 10th, it's clear, and some of these were by third parties, others were by her staff, others are on her own account, but all types of indications that she's associated with the Democratic Party. Not until she files in July 29th, and she's provided reasons of the record why she waited that long, does she make an announcement that she's going to be an independent. So based on that, I can't support Ms. Chappelle's motion in support of denying the protest. So I don't have anything further to offer, and we'll introduce all those exhibits I just talked about as part of this record. Are there any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor, we're going to go a head count of Ms. Chappelle's motion. Ms. Chappelle?
Yes.
Hastings, no. Mr. McCafferty?
Yes.
Ms. Stickett?
No.
Okay, is there another motion? I will move to uphold the protest by Ms. Taylor against Ms. Davis, if there, and for the reasons I just set forth. Is there a second?
I will second your motion.
Okay, any other question or comment to be added? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the motion will go by head count. Ms. Chappelle?
No.
Hastings, yes. Mr. McCafferty?
No.
Okay, and Ms. Sticken?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a tie vote. We have to provide a response to the Secretary of State, who I think should take a look at this, and I think the court should take a look at matters such as this, because it is a case of first impression, and I appreciate the
Well,
parties.
one comment though, I mean, the facts may be a little different, but the law is not the same. I mean, the law is the same, so it may be a case of first impression with respect to some of the facts, but I think the law is the same, so I'm not quite sure. So it'll be interesting to see how they apply the law to the current set of facts. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to appreciate both Ms. Taylor and Mr. Thomas and Ms. Davis for appearing today. Your advocacy on behalf of your client, Mr. Thomas, is to be appreciated. We'll see what happens, transpires. There will be a record created today that will be produced. You're entitled to it, of course, and will be given a copy of the position letters that have to be out within 14 days to Secretary of State. Any other questions from the board?
Just how quickly can we get the transcript, because we'll need that in order to meet our 14-day deadline to prepare the position statements.
When do you need it by?
As soon as you can get it. Yeah.
This week, end of this week.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, hearing that matter is concluded. Now onto a really easy matter.
Oh my God.
That won't take, but we have to discuss the recommendations for new voting equipment for the Caucus County Board of Elections. And to tee that up will be Mr. Peter James.
Yeah. So Peter comes up. So today we will be presenting a recommendation of the voting equipment system we would like to procure under the terms of Senate Bill 135. Peter James will be taking us through a presentation. That's about 15 minutes in length, and it highlights key items that are in the staff's recommendation report that was been provided to the board as part of the board packet. We do obviously anticipate questions from the board. And so Tony and I have had the whole voting equipment committee here present, so we can try to answer any questions that come our way the best that we can. Peter will be sitting up at the table today because as you can see, the TVs are on. So this will have the slides that he'll be going through that people in the audience can see, as well as he'll be sharing his screen on the bigger TV here. So those viewing the presentation from home will be able to see what Peter is doing. And with that, I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to you, Peter.
Okay, just checking the clock, make sure it's still good morning and not good afternoon. Good morning. I'm Peter James, the Election and Compliance Administrator. And I'm also here representing the CCBO's BOE staff, including the Voting Equipment Committee, most of which are here today in person in the audience here to talk about voting equipment and our recommendation. This presentation is a high-level summary of the full report that was included in your board packet and will be available on our websites. And at the conclusion of the presentation, we'll take any questions that you have. The Voting Equipment Committee. What's on your screen currently is the subcommittee. This includes board member Davis, Chappelle, and Sticken, the director and deputy director, myself, and management of departments most directly impacted by the voting equipment. On the screen here is the larger committee, which included supervisors from the Information Services, Ballot, Candidate and Petitions Services, and the Election Support Departments. Okay, why purchase new voting equipment? In 2018, Ohio Senate Bill 135 passed, which provided state funding to all 88 Ohio counties for new voting equipment. Cuyahoga County in particular was allocated a little bit over $10.4 million. This money expires on June 30th, 2023. Aging voting equipment. Our precinct-based scanner, the DS200, we have been using since 2009, and the 88 unit, the AutoMark, we've been using since 2008. By the end of this year, this equipment will have gone through 68 total elections since 2009, which is a significant number. And then lastly, we want to take advantage of new technology in both hardware and software, because I think it just goes without saying that technology has changed a lot in the past 13 years. Selection parameters. These were just some of the key factors that we used during the search process when evaluating the vendors. Functionality of the equipment.
Excuse me, Mr. James, in no particular order, correct?
In no particular order, correct. Yeah. Yeah, functionality of the equipment. The voter interface of the equipment, was it simple to use? Did it have easy to follow instructions? The hardware components, again, was it easy to set up? Was it going to be easy for poll workers to set up? The ancillary items that would need to be used with the hardware components, both the cost of those and again, how easy they would be to implement. Software, there's two pieces of software that come with the voting system, the ballot creation software and the tabulation software. In the pre-post election process, the importing and creating of elections, as well as the uploading and downloading of information from our voter registration system. Ease of setup for poll workers, customer service provided by the vendor, and lastly, the overall security of the voting system. Throughout the entire search process, the CCBOE has been committed to maintaining the use of a paper-based voting system, which is what we also currently use. Timeline. Going on close to 5 years here, so there's been a number of significant steps in the process. I'll just quickly highlight some of the key ones. December 2017 was the first demonstration that we had. It was a demonstration day for Northeast Ohio counties. The 5 vendors that attended were and still are the 5 vendors certified by Ohio to do business in the state. All 5 vendors were, moving on to October of 2018, all 5 of these vendors were sent surveys, of which 3 of them responded, which then led to January of 2019, when we had individual vendor demonstrations here at the Board of Elections, where each vendor had 1 full day to present. We followed that up in April 2019 with another survey where we asked each of the vendors 25 general questions and then a set of vendor specific ones. In June of 19, we had individual election setup vendor demonstrations. This was a pretty intense demonstration. Each vendor had 4 full days to present. And this consisted of the vendor and CCBOE staff coding an election, having hands-on interaction with the setup and breakdown of the equipment, and a thorough vetting of the precinct-based scanner, 88 unit, and the central count system. For this demonstration, we used a gubernatorial primary election, which is the most difficult election to administer. In October of 2019, several committee members visited counties that currently use our voting systems, that are under consideration. In January of 2020, we had an ADA and in-person voting equipment demonstration where each vendor demonstrated the functionality of their ADA units and early in-person voting process. Approximately 70 people attended the open house event representing over 20 different organizations. Then at this point, as you'll remember, the pandemic started, we had the presidential election cycle. So the next significant event we had in the selection process was a virtual security summit in February of 2021. At this event, vendors presented on the security of its hardware and software. The biggest takeaway from this event is that the IT security professionals in attendance saw no red flags with security, and the vendors satisfactorily answered all their questions. The next month, March 2021, we sought feedback from other counties using the voting systems under consideration. In total, we spoke to 9 counties. And this is very helpful to gather this information on how the voting systems performed during the 2020 presidential election cycle. Finally, in May of 2021, we held a voting equipment and tabulation system demonstration. This was the final demonstration of the acquisition process. Attendees included poll workers, trainers, voter advocacy groups, and the public. Okay, the recommendation. During the thorough evaluation of each vendor over a 4-year period, the CCBOE's goal was to obtain a voting system that would provide the following: best in election software and security, improved election management system, introduction of ballot on demand printing in the early vote in-person voting process, overall improved voting experience, especially for voters with disabilities, a comprehensive technological enhancements, and adaptability to the unique needs of Cuyahoga County. Although all 3 vendors presented strong products that would improve our current voting system, the CCBOE Voting Equipment Committee unanimously recommends Clear Ballot to be our next voting equipment and tabulation system vendor. Here are a few reasons why we are recommending Clear Ballots. Both the Voting Equipment Committee and CCBOE staff overwhelmingly favored Clear Ballot. Information obtained from the public demonstrations also showed voters preferred Clear Ballot. The election management system, which includes the ballot creation and tabulation software, stood out specifically. The voting equipment is very intuitive to set up and use. And finally, Clear Ballot excelled in terms of technological enhancements and a willingness to customize its products for Cuyahoga County. Now I'll go through various components of the voting system. First one up on the screen is the precinct-based scanner, which is called ClearCast Go. It has simple to follow on-screen instructions. It's easy to set up on election day. It has the same plug-and-play concepts that the current DS200 has, so that transition should be very simple. It has a rugged ballot box, which you can see in the picture up on your screen. And finally, it's stackable, which will be an asset for our current warehouse configurations. Next is the ADA ballot marking device, which is called Clear Access. It is self-contained, on wheels, and no tables are needed. Again, this has the same plug-and-play concept as the precinct-based scanner. There'll be no lifting required by poll workers. It prints a full, undifferentiated paper ballot. This is a key point because both staff and voter advocacy groups prefer to have the physical form of the ballot be the exact same for all voters. And then lastly, it also received the highest marks of all the vendors at the ADA voting equipment demonstration. High-speed scanner, the central count scanner, this is what is used to scan vote by mail ballots. Tests demonstrated that the scanning speed of Clear Ballot's high-speed scanners equaled or exceeded other products. It can be networked to a central server, and the supplemental and replacement parts can be purchased commercially off the shelf. The election management system. Pictured on your left is ClearDet Design, which is their ballot creation software. And then pictured on the right is ClearCount, which is their tabulation software. The software features of Clear Ballot's voting system, more than any other aspect, stood out above the competition. This is what's used to create and lay out the form of the ballot, as well as tabulate ballots to create election results. The election management system is browser-based. It has simple navigation, intuitive features, and many customizable options. The ballot adjudication system allows staff to view all oval positions for a specific race at the same time. And the software can generate a sequential stub number on a ballot stub using on-demand printing. Finally, the cutting-edge technological expertise of Clear Ballot's products demonstrate, coupled with their willingness to customize and adapt quickly, earn them high marks with the CCBOE staff and position them to grow and advance in the elections industry. Real quickly on storage and transportation, Clear Ballot's equipment stood out in this area as well. The rugged design will allow for stacking. Ease of transport and storage will be important for poll worker training, as we will be sending out voting equipment to training locations again starting next year. Okay, why can Clear Ballot handle Cuyahoga County? Just a couple quick facts about the company itself. It's headquartered in Boston, Massachusetts. It was founded as an auditing company in 2009, expanding to vote by mail, then precinct-based voting.
Excuse me, when you say founded as an auditing company, what does that mean?
They created software in which they could go into a voting jurisdiction and whatever the jurisdiction, whoever their company was that they had, one of the other voting equipment vendors, they were able to take their ballots and run them through this program to be able to actually tabulate those results, and in fact, conducting an audit of that, so it could be compared to what that vendor's results were for their own county.
Okay, it has 67 full-time employees, including 6 based here in Ohio. They currently operate in 13 states and are currently used by 13 Ohio counties. I do want to point out that the number 13 for the Ohio counties does not include Summit County, whose board selected Clear Ballot on August 2nd. King County, Washington, which is an all vote, Washington is an all vote by mail state. They have over 1.4 million registered voters. Stating the obvious, they're a customer of Clear Ballots. Why it's significant is that the CCBOE will use the same ballot creation and tabulation software as King County. Bucks County, PA has over 500,000 registered voters, and like us, they are an election day precinct-based scanning county. Clear Ballot also conducts audits for New York City and statewide in Maryland, South Carolina, and New Hampshire. 1 in 5 US voters are impacted, which means use a Clear Ballot product in some form. And then since becoming an Ohio vendor in 2016, Clear Ballot has grown to 13 Ohio counties. In conclusion, based on all this, the CCBOE is confident about becoming Clear Ballot's largest precinct-based election day customer. As a reminder, back in 2009, the CCBOE was ES&S's largest jurisdiction to utilize DS200 ballot scanners at that time. Cost overview, just take a quick look at state-funded items versus items that'll have to be purchased with county funds. Table A, state-funded items, and then on the next slide is Table B, which are county-funded items. Both of these have a set price, which was set by the Ohio Department of Administrative Services. And these tables were generated as a result of the passage of Senate Bill 135 in 2018. Again, reiterate, Table A items are covered by the states. Examples of this include all voting equipments, the high-speed scanners, both the ballot creation and tabulation software, and warranty, licensing, and support for years 1 through 5 of each of these products. Table B, once again, any items listed on Table B are not covered by state funds. Examples include additional election management workstations, additional USB drives, and then pre-election and election day vendor support for September and November 2023 elections. Additional ancillary items and services. The CCBOE will need to purchase some additional ancillary items and services that are not listed under tables A or B. The ancillary items, just to reiterate, are not covered by state funds. Examples of this include canvas ballot bags, storage carts, power strips, extension cords, temporary staffing for acceptance testing in LNA, and current equipment disposal. Quantity of units to purchase. We went into that in more detail. The quantity of units we're purchasing in the written reports, but these quantities were based upon the potential of 300 polling locations in the future and using our current best work practices.
Excuse me for interrupting, which I'm just thinking of it. I don't know who has the answer to this. When we bought the DS200s back, did we buy too many? And did we buy too many auto marks? And did we take, I think, I recall we did, maybe, we probably bought more product than we needed.
Bought a lot of product, but then also, and maybe someone can remind me, but I think about, in that point in time, I think we were around 1,400 precincts.
1436 precincts when we initially went with them, and then
Excuse me, why don't you just identify yourself, Brian? Because I just, it's always, you just don't know what you need until you need it, and you don't want to buy more equipment than.
So it was 1,400 precincts, and we're down to 975.
when we initially went in negotiations with DSNS, I want to say 2008, we had 1,436 precincts, and I want to say it was like 500 polling locations. We immediately after that re-precincted based on the census, and we got it down to, I want to say it was like 1,100 precincts, 1,200 precincts. So then we ordered 1,200. We initially ordered 1,500 DS200s and 635 ADA units. We renegotiated them down to 1,200 and 500.
Because of the,
new re-precincting, we dropped the numbers. It turns out we didn't end up needing them what originally ordered as negotiations went on.
so, and I see Vic is here too. If Vic could comment, do we have too much equipment now based on the number of precincts and polling locations, or is it just about right?
We're decreasing, the new order is to decrease slightly. We have 1,200 precinct scanners. We're dropping that number down to 1,100 based on re-precincting that we've done since 2008. And that's including training units and early in-person units. We're obviously going to change over with early in-person to ballot on demand system, hopefully when we approve this. So that'll be a little different.
Yeah, and so we wanted to make sure we had a precinct-based scanner for each precinct, so 975. We want to make sure that in our current single precinct locations, we have 2 scanners in there. So this way, in case one goes down, we automatically have a backup there. We do put out backup units at the 7 zone stations we have, so we want to have a few there. So we definitely came down from the 1,200, but we want to make sure that we can cover the way we currently look, as well as if we, let's say we go up with some precincts. I don't think we would go up tremendously, but if there was some, we'd have the ability for that, as well as, again, we always have some backups that we put at the zone stations in case something goes awry. Hopefully it's new equipment. That doesn't happen for some time, but you're also purchasing now for what's going to happen 8, 9, 10 years down the road too.
Vic just reminded me, and when we originally bought ESNS equipment in 2008, 2009, we were precinct-based scan. So each DS200 could only scan an individual precinct. We since switched over to the entire location that's on there. So even if one goes down, they can still vote on the other machine. So hence we can decrease the number that we need.
So what I'm getting is hearing is the committee's looked at the numbers closely. It feels comfortable in that recommendation.
Yes.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Peter.
No problem. Only a few more slides. Summary of the costs, table A, again, state funded items. Their ballot will cost $9,511,820. As a reminder, we have 10.4 million allocated in table A. So the approximately 9.5 million is well under that amount. Any unused table A funds, however, will have to be returned to the states. Table B, county funded items, clear ballot would be 79,500. And then ancillary items also county funded to be determined.
Excuse me, too. I have another question, and Mark can weigh in on this possibly. So this isn't the lowest and best bidder because other vendors have lower prices, correct? I mean, I see that I think ES&S was at 9.485 and Hart was at 8.363. So we're not constrained by that requirement, the lowest and best bidder, because of why?
The authority of the revised code to make the selection. It's not a low bid, lowest the best, lowest responsible. It's best proposal, best provider.
As long as we stay within the 10.4, the state will pay for all that. If we were to go above that amount, then the county would be out for that, correct?
Correct, right. That was correct. And just to add to that, Senate Bill 135, that was the crux of it, is that the legislature wanted to give the individual boards of elections to not be constrained to the lowest bid or even the type of machine, whether it was a DRE or a paper-based system. They did a lot of the funding based on a paper-based system because it is less expensive than a DRE system because you're purchasing less equipment, but they wanted each county to be able to vet and figure out what worked best for that individual county.
So, and just to add, so just clarity too to the public, is all 3 vendors, but in this case, the recommendation we're making is the same paper-based system. where you'll fill out the ovals, you'll scan it, and then they'll be tabulated with essential tabulation.
That's correct.
Right. So that the public may not notice any difference in the process.
So right, from a voter standpoint, a lot of them may not even realize that it's different.
And the training would be consistent with the current training we're doing now, or vary a bit?
So the training would have to be modified to account for some of the different looks of the screens, but very similar in that as far as setup, and Peter mentioned this, a plug and play concept, which a DS200 is you kind of pull worker plugs it in, flips the lid, and this clear ballot system is the same way. So there is very similar in that regard. It's just a matter of what are the screens to set it up, to take it down. But so there would be some modifications to that, but it's not a complete overhaul like going from DRVs to paper-based.
Could you just share a little bit to, my understanding was Clear Ballot was browser-based, and the other two vendors, election, precinct-based scanning stuff was data-based. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
I just want to make it, because I recall some discussion around Clear Ballot system having, allowing us to be able to save time for audits because of that distinction.
Yeah,
Could you
you're
explain that a
bringing
little
up
bit?
two good points there. The first is it being browser-based allows our election officials, our ballot department, to be able to work in multiple screens at the same time. So it's just kind of the user face of it. It's not having to open up separate programs with it. And then the other aspect is as far as because they are such a strong accounting company at their core, one of the features that we really appreciated was the fact that, let's say there's an audit on a particular race. We don't have to pull up each of those precincts one by one and look at the ovals. They can actually pull up an entire race, and then we can see all of the ovals, and they can actually categorize them for the most filled in one all the way down to the one that might just have a dot or something. So that was another aspect, as well as with the rankings.
Yeah, and now you're refreshing my recollection of what that discussion was. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Just closing out this slide, Table B and ancillary items will require the CCDOE to ask for an additional appropriation from County Council. Okay, what?
Excuse me, was I go back? I thought I had to figure out $50,000. Is it 79? Did I just see that?
Yeah, there was
79.
additional things were kind of factored into it, but I think we updated our report.
Okay, so that's, and what about ancillary items? Do we have an idea of what that could be? I mean, is it tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands?
Hundreds of thousands. I think it probably could be in the vicinity of anywhere between $700,000 to $1 million, probably.
Well, these are boxes and bags.
So this would be for the canvas ballot bags that we would utilize, new transportation carts for the equipment, power strips, some of those types of items.
Does that vary between vendors? I mean, you know what I'm getting at is, you have to spend $1 million for each one of them, or do you spend less?
Actually, it would vary in that because Clear Ballot's ADA unit is a self-contained unit that looks similar to the other one. It's the box that wheels that gets pushed out. That's very simple, where some of the other vendors actually have equipment that you would have to shelve it in a cart to transport it out, which means you would actually need more cart space for that. So that number could go up regarding carts for transport out, as well as potentially for some shelving internally to the warehouse to keep this equipment when it comes back. So like, for example, the one vendor has a standalone printer and it's a unit, and those things they have to go on something. So that increase actually, I think, could go up with the other vendors.
But for the most part, I think that number is pretty close, regardless of the vendor that would be selected. It would also include the unboxing and the LNA acceptance, IB&V and acceptance testing of the units.
So when can you hard up that number? I mean, when because if you go into county council, they're going to ask you, right,
Yeah.
how much you need.
So we have started going out, researching, getting some general ideas of what I think we'll be there pretty soon. What we haven't done is we haven't released bids for the information. I don't know if we need to do that before we go to county council. I think we need to be able to point to one or two items to get a ballpark of what that is, to be able to ask or make a reasonable ask of county council. And then upon getting that, we would actually go through and follow the procurement processes of soliciting at least 3 quotes through the system to home in on a specific number.
So I kind of thought I heard 2 different answers. So is there a material difference between the cost for ancillary items between the 3? I thought you said it could vary, and it sounds like you're saying. I'm
I
not
would
sure.
agree, it can vary. I'm
Okay.
just saying it's not a substantial difference between the 3 in general.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
One other question on the class that I had, because I don't remember, what was the discount that Hart was giving? What did that involve? Because that was seemed like a pretty significant.
So we didn't research what is all made up of that because they weren't the recommended vendor, but we did see that. And so they, and we have not, because they aren't being recommended, we didn't take it to the Secretary of State's office to even see if it's allowable. So their first number, which is about 9.5, goes off the apples to apples of what they have published on table A for any county to purchase. And then this 1.1 million discount just appears. Again, we didn't, because it's not lowest and best, it's best. We didn't really dive into that with them. Why is this? And then even take it to the level of Secretary of State and Department of Administrative Services. Can you even do this?
Well, when they offered the discount, did they not enumerate the items that, it's just sort of, did they just pull a number out of the air or just, say it was based on something?
Yeah, as far as I know, it showed up and it was.
Just
I
curious.
received an email message that said due to COVID that they were. Yeah, it just said, you will also see our comments to be competitive during this COVID-19 period as evidenced in the special discount provided to Cuyahoga County.
Okay, thanks.
Was it quantifiable by like this much off
Got
this
it.
scanner and this
Right.
much off this printer?
Okay.
And ultimately, it's below, all the pricing is below the temporal.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah. Couple other questions I have, I don't know. Did we take a look to see if any of the vendors were involved in any current litigation involving other boards of elections or any elections that were executed related to their performance?
Mr. Chairman, I took a look at the vendors through LexisNexis, and I could not find any active pending litigation involving Clear Ballot. The other 2, large companies, of course, things come up in the society we're in, lawsuits were filed. And I could not drill down into whether or not those would materially impact their ability to perform, but there are pending litigation involved with the other 2. I cannot represent that litigation having any material impact
I
on
understand
there.
that. Okay, thank you.
And Clear Ballot being the recommended vendor, I specifically reached out and asked the company to which they responded. They're not party to any litigation, which Marty supported.
The only other question I had, I obviously was on the committee and support the recommendation, and I recall it's been a really long process, and you guys have done a lot of due diligence, and Lisa and I were in a couple meetings and Zoom meetings and in-person meetings, so we know that you have done a lot of vetting. I do appreciate the third-party input we got. It's not just recommendation being made, poll workers and folks have weighed in on the decision, and but we did talk about functionality and all of those things that go into the recommendation. So I'm supportive of the recommendation, obviously, as a member of the committee, and all of the voluminous work that has been done. I did have a question though around, because this issue has come up about financial stability and the issue around there's no audited financial statements from the company. So did I miss something on that? And what vetting have we done around the financial stability of the company?
Sure. So regarding why they don't have audited financials, if you wanted to ask, the CEO is on the company from Clear Ballot, is on Bob Hoyt. But what we have done internally is in July, Tony, Peter, and myself did have a conversation with the CEO, one of the board members, Jordan Esteen, and other executive membership of Clear Ballot regarding their financials. And they are not a publicly traded company. which is allowable. I mean, it's not positive or negative, it's just a statement. And but we talked through their company and how they have their approach to evolving from where they were in 2009, their calculated approach to where they are now, not overextending themselves and building as they go. They have, I think, over $16 million of inventory sitting in a warehouse ready for sale, and more production to be made. And that was an effort on their part to, with the current state of supply chain, with the business they anticipate doing those things. They do have investors in their company, and they have some big financial investors in their company, which at the beginning of their life cycle as a company was more important. They still have those investors. They're strong investors. They're not seeking additional investors, because at this time, as their product and as they grow, they have now a recurring pipeline of fees that come in that a lot of these companies get on their annual service agreements. They are bonded for what they do in the state of New York.
Excuse me for interrupting. Why don't we- Is Mr. White on the line?
Yeah, I was
here?
gonna say, we can hear, one thing, I just want to make sure I understand the distinction you're making. It's not that they don't have audited financials. They're not willing to disclose the audited financials for many of the reasons that you've indicated, the investors and so forth.
See, now that's not what I read in his letter. He says,
Oh,
we
okay.
do not have audited financial statements to provide to you. So I don't know
Okay.
what that means. So Mr. Hoyt, is he on the line? Can he hear us?
I am. Can you hear me?
We can. So Mr. Hoyt, you heard the discussion, correct?
I did.
And so do you have audited, does Clear Ballot have audited financial statements of its?
No.
No, okay. And I would ask why that, because even though it's not publicly traded, banks would often require disclosure. Investors would want some sort of audit form, at least.
Exactly. Exactly. So we are a venture-backed company that invests all of our profits back into R&D for our customers. We are not financed by a bank, and we do not pay dividends to our shareholders. So we do not have to produce audited financials. I do report to a board twice a year, and I do show them all of our growth figures and all of that, right? An audit can easily cost $100,000, and we prefer to invest that into, making our customers run better elections, right? We have, as demonstrated, the benefit of those investments. Our customer count has gone from 40 to 146 over the last 3 years. Our registered voter count has gone from 11 million to over 30 million over that same period of time. Our head count has grown from 40 to 80 and will be 100 by the end of the year. We have 6 employees that are residents of Ohio. We have an office in Wilmington, and we plan to put one in Northeast Ohio to support Summit and hopefully Cuyahoga. We have run over 40 elections in Ohio. All of our customers are very strong references. You guys already talked about the inventory that we bought ahead of time, that inventory investment. So I think we have a pretty strong growth record, right? We provided all of these numbers to the team. So I think that, that sort of demonstrates what we've done with the investment that we've gotten from our strong investor team, which includes, for institutional investors, Bessemer, which is one of the larger venture firms in the Boston area. We have Steve Papa. You probably recognize some of his companies, Toast Cash Registers and Restaurants. That's a $30 billion company. Peter Lynch, the founder of the Magellan Fund. Jonathan Bush, the founder of Athena Health. These are all private investors in the firm.
So, thank you, Mr. Hoyt. I appreciate your response. Venture capitalists, though, are there to make money. So why wouldn't we think the Clear Ballot might just be sold to some other third party once, it's leveraged, it's really grown and become their investments have paid off and it's time to sell the company. What happens then?
Well, I think in this industry, you've seen consolidations all over the place, but we have no plans to sell the company. Why would we? We're seeing like incredible growth. So there are no plans to sell the company. You're right. Eventually, one of two things happen, similar to our competitors. At some point, we will, when we get to a certain level where the reoccurring revenue is quite large, we would probably begin paying dividends to our shareholders. And at that time, we would have to produce audited financials. Or if we were going to do it, we don't need another round of venture funding right now, but if we were to do another mezzanine round of venture funding, then that would require some kind of an audited financial plan for the valuation of the company.
Right, because you can't solicit investments without having some sort of SEC document prepared for your investors, correct?
That's a legal thing that I'm not sure I know. Most of them, when you get to the mezzanine stage, right, most of them will require something like that, right? Because they have to satisfy their LPs. But we haven't eaten in the investment that we made in 2019. We still have quite a bit of that left, right? We use it for operating capital, but we've been growing fast enough to generate most of that on our own. Pretty controlled growth, right? I mean, we did quite well in New York. We did quite well in Florida. We did quite well in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Oregon, Washington. So generally what we've been able to do is enter a state and then be able to, based on the quality of our products, people, and references, we were able to take pretty good market share in those states. 70% in Oregon, 78% in Washington. We're getting close to, in New York, we not only audit the whole 41 counties in New York, including New York City, but we also do a lot of the absentee tabulation, especially in the Dominion accounts. So we've been rewarded for that. I will tell you that 100% of our customers are referenceable.
Yeah, I think we've looked at the references. Our folks have looked into that. The only thing I would just say, and thank you for your explanation and the disclosures. We don't go through this process that often. It's a big commitment. It's a big amount of money that we're going to spend. And I'm assuming, given the statements you made today about the growth track and the concerns that the chair has raised around what happens, and we understand companies grow and they get sold, and it applies to consolidate or whatever, and that applies to lots of companies, not just perhaps to Clear Ballot. But our concern would be around, or at least mine in particular, would be this is going to be a 5-year contract, but we don't purchase equipment every 5 years or every maybe we're looking at 10 years. So we would be concerned, and this is an issue for council to take a look at, around having change of control provisions in the agreement to make sure that, if there's some change of control, we are protected, the public's protected, our dollars are protected, and you guys will continue if you sell, not only if you start issuing dividends to your shareholders, but that, we would still be able to, and the county voters would still be able to rely on the excellent service that we believe you guys are going to give and the equipment will give. So that's really the concern, and from my perspective about it. So.
Yeah, and I think that's appropriate with any of the vendors.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Yeah.
So I would suggest that, but we have no plans to do that. We just want to become the best voting equipment company in the market.
So you're a CEO, you're standing behind, what a great vendor you guys are going to be to Cuyahoga County, right?
I stand behind all of my customers. That's why they're all references. We're going to be a great partner for Cuyahoga County.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Hoyt.
Along those lines, I would agree, and to Mr. Hoyt's point, really could be any of the companies. And so having that kind of assurance down the road makes sense. But I had felt that, and my understanding as this was explained to me when we began the process, even all 3 that we finalized to are solid companies, including Clear Choice, Clear Ballot, and that stable companies, large companies, and we did reference check all three. So I felt very comfortable with all of them.
I communicated with the Secretary of State's office, and they have heard no negative comments or with asked them if they had heard or the Department of Administrative Services regarding any of these companies and any of the financial problems or any of the other counties in the state have problems with the transfer of equipment and implementation. And they came back and said that did not exist.
So, Mr. Hoyt, this is Jeff Hastings. Again, a question. So congratulations. I understand Summit County is going to negotiate or enter an agreement with Clear Ballot. We're considering it. We're having a recommendation for our staff, this being Caucus County, which is going to be your largest client in Ohio. Are you concerned about too much growth too fast? And can you manage it?
Our growth has been controlled. Yes, we planned for this. We've already begun all of the training materials and videos for Summit. And yeah, we plan on putting, as I told the board, we plan on getting some space in the Cleveland, Akron area where we can store equipment and even actually help do training sessions there as we do the sort of swap out, swap in, right? And so, yeah, I think that we look forward to serving those counties plus the counties that we've already served as we grew in Ohio since we first entered the state.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Hoyt from the board? The staff? Okay, stay on the call, Mr. Hoyt. There may be some others, but we'll continue with Mr. James' presentation.
There's only 2 more slides here.
Okay.
Okay, next steps, what comes next? Final steps in the acquisition process. CCBOE Voting Equipment Committee asked the board to approve the recommendation of Clear Ballot today. And in conjunction with that, the director and deputy director request authorization to negotiate a contract with Clear Ballot. This contract will then be reviewed by the director, deputy director, county prosecutor, and the Secretary of State. And then text of a resolution and sublease agreement will then be sent to county council. I want to point out that the language of this resolution and sublease purchase agreement was provided by the Secretary of State and is required to complete the equipment acquisition. I.e., like, we don't really have the ability to edit that text. Continuing on, the Technical Advisory Committee, or TAC, will review the technical components of the voting system. A negotiated contract will be provided to board members for review, along with a list of ancillary items and approximate costs. Our hope is on November 8th, 2022, County Council will conduct a third and final reading on the voting equipment purchase. Delivery of new voting equipment will begin hopefully in January of 2023. And then lastly, the May 2nd, 2023 primary election, the new voting equipment will be implemented for the first time. Just in closing here, as you can see, there are several steps that still need to happen, which are dependent upon the board selecting an equipment vendor. Staff have had preliminary conversations with various county offices, Secretary of State, Mark Musson, to make them aware of our intentions and seek their assistance throughout the remainder of the process.
So county council, have we kept them informed of this process? Is it Trevor? Or?
Yes, so I've been communicating actually with Trevor and with Brendan Doyle, who is their legal representation, and as well as Greg, so who is the law director or county executive. So that sublease agreement that Peter referenced, that's something where Mark with Greg Huth and Doyle will get. It's set up for county commissioners and a county auditor. We don't have that, so they know it's coming. And also, county council had to start working or discussing with someone in the county IT regarding the contract that we will have to negotiate to ensure that all of the cybersecurity clauses and those types of things would be in there. So we're getting things moved along. County council knows, county executive knows.
And they've been included in the process too, with the demonstrations and the advice. Just a few quick questions. So we generally, how did the 5 vendors get on this list? Whose decision was that? The state list.
Right. So the state list, so that goes through, they make application through the board of voting machine examiners that they want to be a certified vendor in Ohio, which was not unique to this process that was in it before. And so they did that. And then I think participate in Senate Bill 135, they further, though, had to work with administrative services to basically get like state term pricing for this information, for these equipment for a period of time.
So they, all 5 vendors were certified by the Federal Election Assistance Commission,
Yes.
correct? And the Ohio Board of Voting Machine Examiners, correct?
Correct.
Ms. Chappelle has been on and you're currently on, right? Ms.
Correct.
Chappelle? So they got on that list, and then of the 5, 3 of them wanted to get involved with this board.
Right, so we actually started off with all 5, and from there, 3 of them provided some responses, and from what we saw from demonstrations and what we received in writing, we found that these 3 would be the ones that potentially could be successful.
Just some other quick question. I think the answers were here. The hardware and software for Clear Ballot is made in the United States or prepared in the United States, is my understanding.
They have a manufacturing plant in New Hampshire, and all of their programmers, software programmers, are based in the United States.
Mr. Hoyt, can you hear me?
I can.
Can you confirm that, sir?
I can. I'm sitting in our factory in Nashua, New Hampshire right now,
All right.
and our R&D offices are in Boston.
Okay, thank you. Disposal of existing equipment. I know you've given that some thought. If you can briefly describe what the plans are.
Yes, so what we've already had an initial conversation with the county's IT department. The county has a contract for disposal of electronics. And so the county believes that we can utilize that contract to dispose of this equipment. We actually, in 21, did destroy some of our auto marks because we just have so many of them, we didn't need them. And we went through that county contract. It has to go before county council, they take a vote on it, and it gets destroyed. This obviously is a lot more equipment. I believe it's Rep 3 is the name of the company that the county contracts with. And we will be having a conversation with county IT and Rep 3 regarding the volume of what we have. The auto marks were done at no charge, and this potentially could be a no charge destruction with the county, but based on the volume, that may be outside of the scope of the original contract that the county had, which we'll find that out. And if so, that would be one of those ancillary items that we would ask for additional funding. The equipment is white, it's clean. The Secretary of State has provided guidance and a directive on disposal equipment. One thing that's kind of unique to Cuyahoga is that none of our current equipment was purchased with HAVA dollars. Our HAVA dollars are used to buy the DREs that no longer existed. So there's different rules for HAVA equipment and how you dispose of that. We don't have that. However, we still notified the Secretary of State, like when we destroyed the auto marks, because it's operating under an abundance of caution. Nothing would be destroyed until new equipment is delivered, acceptance testing, and we know we can use it. And at that point in time, we would be comfortable on destroying what we have, because we can never be without equipment.
Right. And so have you looked at where you're going to start? You're going to have 2 vendors' equipment at our warehouse. And can we do that? Or how do we handle it?
So with Clear Ballot, and part of the conversations we've had, and they've talked about this for months and months and months. If we were to be awarded, their Clear Ballot is going to get a warehouse location in somewhere in Northeast Ohio. It'll be somewhere between Akron and Cleveland, of which at their cost, the new voting equipment would be delivered to that warehouse, where we would be able to send staff there, unbox, it's a ton of cardboard and styrofoam, and take care of that. And then we would be able to transition some of our DS200s to that warehouse. So we kind of would be able to swap and have an outside location as well as our current internal location to navigate, because it's a lot of stuff to have at one time.
Just 2 brief more questions. Our paper vendors can remain the same. We don't have to buy different specifications or requirements for the paper that we use.
They will be able to use our paper. We have had a conversation with Midwest Direct. Midwest actually printed paper ballots for Huron County, which is a Clear Ballot customer for the August 2nd election. So they are able to do
I do recall, and that it was years ago, ES&S, there was an issue about the paper and the quality of it. And they couldn't provide certain guarantees unless we used certain products.
Right, there actually is ES&S stock. Clear Ballot doesn't have that, but they do provide parameters on like paper weight and other things that make up a piece of
In our
paper.
database management system, DIMS, is that interfaceable? Do we have to, is there additional expenses now if we get a new vendor?
No. So through some of the demonstrations that we've had, the mock elections, and the 4-day vendor demonstrations. We actually created an election, that gubernatorial election out of DIM, imported it into Clear Ballots software system, and that was able to be done successfully to do that data transfer.
I do want to have more. The state does not require a performance bond be posted by selected vendors, is that correct?
No, so the, in the directive that they sent out years ago for the purchase of equipment, did require boards of elections to get a performance bond for this. We have communicated, Tony and I have called around to a couple of our friends in other counties, and none of them did get the performance bond because it's not required. And the Secretary of State, we did reach out and they confirmed, no, it wasn't in a directive. You don't need to get that performance bond. That 10.4 million, we never actually touch it. Once it's selected and the county council approves and they go through acceptance testing, the money goes right from the state to the vendor. And so that money transfer happens that way. But no, there's no bonding requirement of a local board of election.
Any other questions for the staff? I mean, I just want to comment that, we provided a 200+ page report. It's been very thorough. We've had 2 board members on this committee over the past 5 years. I've been involved in one level or the other over that period of time. So this isn't something that we're not familiar with as board members or the staff. And I appreciate, the due diligence, I think clearly that this staff has done in making its recommendations. It's worked looked long and far and looked at all different aspects of this purchase. And I support their recommendation. I don't know if the other board members have any questions. Ms. Chappelle has just stepped out for a moment. I know she's coming back, and before we take any other further action, then I'll wait for her to come here.
I want to say that, the 3 vendors that we took through this process, they're all good companies and they all have good products. The Clear Ballot product, though, for our particular fact pattern in this county, I think will work best for us. We will continue to use our current equipment through ES&S through the rest of this year. We will conduct our September 13th recall and the November 8th general election with that equipment. And so again, they're a good vendor. And I want to say, this definitely was a committee. All these people in the audience did awesome work. Tony and Peter really took a lead on this in the last months to get us to this point. And we should all be proud of what they were able to figure out.
Okay, any other comments from the board members?
Just to thank the committee. I had a lot of work over a number of years, and then start, restart, and stop, and start. It was a good process. So thanks for all the hard work.
Well, after this, the due diligence, the staff's on the reports they prepared, our discussions this afternoon, I will move to recommend that this Board of Elections recommend to the County Council new voting equipment for the County Board of Elections, that vendor being Clear Ballot. If there's a second.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And then I will move to authorize the director, deputy director, and county prosecutor represented by Mr. Musson to negotiate a contract with the recommended voting equipment vendor, and that those negotiations will include county council representatives. If there's a second.
Second.
Any question or comment? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously. Is there any other business to be conducted, Mr. Ballot?
There is not.
Okay. That's the longest meeting of the year so far. Okay. Everybody, thank you so much for your time and patience being here. Have a wonderful rest of the week.
Blaming it on me.
And
Blame the new guy.
I will move to adjourn. We can adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.